The girl was the Varodian Empire's only princess in 100 years. But there was not a trace of joy in the emperor's eyes. He sarcastically remarked that the empress had given birth to something useless. The princess had the mark of Nevidar on her wrist. Any child with this mark would not live past the age of 21. The emperor coldly walked out of the room, leaving only the empress to cry alone while holding the little princess. But he didn't notice that the little princess in her arms was already silently comforting her. This was because before she woke up, this was the world of a novel she had once read. The Varodian family was the royal family in this world. As a special, traditional family that revered physical strength and believed in proving one's worth solely through power. They were cold and ruthless, viewing children only as candidates for succession. Moreover, for 500 years, only boys had been born into the family. Therefore, the Varodian royal swordsmanship was designed according to a man's mana circuit. Girls could not learn swordsmanship. The birth of the little princess was tantamount to a curse for the entire royal family. But the little princess didn't feel the slightest bit of sadness, because in her previous life, she was an orphan with cancer. She barely survived with the help of society and kind-hearted people. The girl lived up to expectations, receiving an acceptance letter from a top university in Country F, one of the best in the world. But on the day before she was to register, her condition worsened and she passed away. So this life was more like a gift from heaven. The little princess reached out her small hand and patted gently. The empress noticed something was amiss and asked in surprise if the little princess was comforting her. The little princess nodded vigorously in response to the empress. The maid beside her also thought the little princess was a genius. The little princess smiled happily. Her adorable appearance greatly comforted the empress. She only hoped that her child could grow up healthy. Soon, it was time for the little princess's first birthday grab ceremony. Unlike an ordinary grab ceremony, since ancient times, the Varodian royal family has had a tradition. The princes of every generation would choose the hilt of the sword of light that symbolized power, Hai Shao. This was a proof of their bloodline. The little princess was still marveling at how fast this bloodline grew and developed. The doors to the banquet hall slowly opened. The dazzling light made it hard for her to open her eyes. A magnificent palace, a handsome, white-haired man, and 3 handsome men with different styles. The emperor and empress were also a perfect match. All of this was a feast for her eyes. Her only task today was to crawl over and grasp that holy sword. But that was precisely the problem. If the plot were to develop according to her memory, today, she would face the first life-threatening crisis of her life here. Within the Empire's forces, there was a power authority called the Giant Linyuan, and they were an antagonistic organization that could not tolerate the princess choosing Hai Shao. If she followed the original plot and grabbed Hai Shao, she would be hunted by assassins from the Giant Linyuan the next second. If she grabbed another sword, she would lose her qualification to be a princess. And she was not the original female lead, Isabel, after all. Her wonderful life had just begun. For this reason, she had to make a different choice from the original book. Perhaps she should think from a different angle. Instead of choosing a sword, it would be better to choose her father, the emperor, because he was the most powerful sword in the entire empire. The little princess hummed a little tune from her past life as she slowly crawled forward. This act instantly stunned her 3 older imperial brothers who were present. At the same time, it piqued the emperor's strong interest. A servant beside him explained that it was very likely a magic spell recited from instinct. A 1-year-old child reciting a magic spell. Although rare, this phenomenon has indeed occurred. The Magic Federation calls this phenomenon innate incantation. The emperor found it absurd. How could a princess born into a family of swordsmanship possibly have magic? On the other side, the little princess encountered the first hurdle of her life. These stairs were too high for her young self, but she still used all her might, using her hands and feet to slowly climb the stairs. Although she was so tired she was out of breath, her heart and lungs surprisingly didn't hurt at all. Compared to being plagued by illness in her past life, her current healthy body made her feel incredibly fortunate. So she turned her head and looked at her achievement with satisfaction. Her smug appearance once again caught the emperor's attention. The ministers below didn't understand why the little princess would go to such a place. The next second, she gave the emperor's calf a big hug. This comical scene made the emperor freeze for 2.5 seconds. The little princess, on the other hand, silently gave herself a thumbs up. Is this what father smells like? The first prince, Simon, couldn't help but step forward. He hadn't expected his little sister to be such an adorable creature. The young prince, Malene, became restless. He was clearly the cutest one. Feeling the warmth of the family for the first time, the little princess couldn't help but smile. Then she made a defiant gesture towards the crowd below. The entire Giant fell silent. After all, they had missed the best opportunity for assassination. The next second, she pounced on the emperor's leg. With a cute and milky voice, she shouted, "I choose." This scene shocked all the civil and military officials present. Of course, this included the emperor she had chosen. At this moment, an attendant thoughtfully reminded His Majesty, "It seems the princess has already made her choice." The two looked at each other for a long time, as if he could communicate with the princess without any barriers. "Her Highness the Princess says you are the Empire's #1 sword, so she chose you." The emperor flew into a rage. "Are you saying this child knew how to communicate with people right after she was born?" Because the emperor had been a genius since birth. In his mind, if he couldn't do something, no one else could either. The attendant did not deny it. The emperor told him to produce evidence. The attendant accepted the order, promising the emperor that he would be responsible for proving it to him. The attendant looked at the little princess and played a winking game with her. The little princess's imitation was just too perfect. She was even adept at switching sides. Such an adorable scene made the empress and the brothers laugh continuously. The emperor's probing gaze was fixed on the princess. Frightened, she staggered and was about to fall off the half-meter-high platform. Fortunately, the next second, she was lifted up by the emperor with one hand. The little princess felt her foolish appearance was just too ridiculous. Her pride hurt. She flailed about in the emperor's hand. After repeated confirmation, the emperor also believed that his daughter could really communicate with adults. Since the princess has already made her choice, the emperor handed the little princess to his attendant. "Her Highness the Princess has chosen the final sword of the swordsmanship empire, His Majesty the Emperor." The applause from below signaled the end of the selection ceremony. The little princess finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, she had successfully deviated from the original plot. At this moment, she only felt a wave of sleepiness wash over her. The next second, she was so tired that her vision went black and she fainted. The little princess struggled desperately in the darkness. She was afraid she would return to the sickbed of her previous life, praying that she could live on in this world. Her extremely strong will to live made her open her eyes again. Dazedly, she discovered she was lying in a strange, warm embrace. Her tsundere father, the emperor, wore a poker face. The attendant beside them praised her nonstop. Her Highness the Princess did a great job today. But he discovered the little princess's eyes were filled with tears. The next second, she hugged the emperor's shoulder and started crying loudly. The attendant was a bit awkward, but the emperor just found it a little noisy. The little princess was afraid of being abandoned again. The emperor, however, thought he had scared the child. After he handed her to the attendant, she immediately stopped crying. Seeing the two being so affectionate, the emperor couldn't bear to watch and immediately turned to leave. The little princess looked at the silver-haired attendant before her. But who would have thought that someone so gentle was originally set up to be an assassin? And what the hell, waitin'? In the end, the little princess comfortably fell asleep in his gentle embrace. From then on, the little princess lived a happy life of eating and sleeping. Not only did she gradually master the ability to speak, but she also started doing push-ups early for her health. This bizarre scene instantly stunned the maid and the empress beside her. The maid even composed a nursery rhyme to praise the princess's extraordinary talent. She also greatly enjoyed the pleasure of being treated as a genius. Unexpectedly, the next second, the emperor walked into the room without any warning, scaring her so much that she froze on the ground, not daring to make a sound. The empress's face immediately darkened. "Shouldn't you have knocked before coming in?" The atmosphere on the scene became extremely awkward. Unexpectedly, the next second, the emperor obediently turned around and gently closed the door. As a knock sounded on the door, the empress greeted him with a smile. "Welcome, my emperor." The loving scene was taken in by the little princess. In the original work, the emperor generally wouldn't make mistakes in front of the empress. His only transgression was probably the words he said when the little princess was born. One could guess without thinking that the emperor probably spent the entire next day placating the empress. In the plot of the original novel, the emperor was the world's strongest, capable of rivaling the male lead. And for an emperor like him, the empress was perhaps his only weakness. This naturally became the decisive factor in his eventual loss to the male lead. After the empress passed away, the emperor fell into a depression and never recovered. He couldn't overcome the pain of losing his loved one, even until the empire's destruction. Looking at her affectionate yet strict father, the emperor, the little princess couldn't help but stand up and shout, "Father!" She shouted, "Father!" The emperor looked bewildered, unable to tell what she wanted. The empress patiently explained, "Is the child calling for you?" The next second, the little princess looked at her father's golden pupils. Could it be that she also had the same beautiful eye color as her father? She fantasized in her heart. The three words, "I love you," slipped out. The emperor was stunned. The little princess was also stunned. How could she suddenly say something so out of line? The emperor looked very angry. "Say that again." The little princess was scared out of her wits. She braced herself and said it again, only to be met with a silence that lasted for dozens of seconds. Seeing this, the empress smoothed things over. "Father is just a bit shy." Seeing that the emperor was still hesitant, the empress patiently bent down to teach her. "How do you ask father for a hug?" This question fried the CPUs of both father and daughter. Was it really appropriate to say this now? The little princess began to struggle internally. "Never mind. Father, hug me." The little princess's eyes were full of longing. But the emperor was so startled by the scene that he kept backing away. The little princess did her best to act cute. Hearing this, the emperor's face darkened. A princess of the Verodian royal family was actually acting cute? The little princess was devastated. The next second, she was about to fall to the ground, but she was scooped up by her tsundere father, although the way he held her was a bit uncomfortable. The comical scene made the empress laugh out loud. She quickly came forward to correct him. "You should hold her like this, not lift her up." The empress suddenly laughed. "Isabel seems to have gotten a bit heavier." The little princess looked surprised. "Am I heavy?" "Of course not. Father is very strong." The little princess felt her father's body heat. She couldn't help but sigh. Is this what it feels like to be protected by family? In her previous life, she was cruelly abandoned without ever even seeing her father's face. Fortunately, now she has a father and mother who love her dearly. Words of happiness slipped out, a gift from mommy and daddy. The emperor was shocked to hear this. He stood there stunned, as if holding a gift. If the empress hadn't reminded him, he might have stood there forever. The little princess was so scared, she immediately held her breath. The empress was very pleased and confessed affectionately to the emperor, "I deeply love the gentle you." Only the sound of a violent heartbeat could be heard. The emperor had almost zero resistance to the empress. The little princess smelled the sour scent of love. She was a child who knew when to make herself scarce, understanding that she should make a timely exit. The emperor stared blankly at the child in his arms. Before long, she also drowsily fell into a dream. Late at night, the emperor woke up early and walked alone under the dark night sky. The thought that the little princess couldn't learn swordsmanship and a legendary curse of not living past 20 made him stop in his tracks and sigh repeatedly. He didn't know why he had become so sentimental. Even though fate had already given its answer, he still hoped his daughter could grow up safe and sound. 2 years later, the little princess was already 3 years old. She had now learned to walk upright. Moreover, the constitution inherited from her bloodline meant she basically never got injured. At a tea party, the empress suddenly mentioned that Wei would be her magic teacher. The little princess felt a little confused. According to the original book's plot, her teacher was supposed to be someone named Molia. Molia came from a family of teachers who had taught the imperial princes for generations. But fortunately, she also liked Wei very much, so she didn't pay it much mind. A short while later, Wei arrived as scheduled. The little princess leaped down from her chair and respectfully bowed, imitating his posture. The empress was amused by the two of them. "I'll be counting on you, Mr. Wei. Please rest assured and leave it to me, Your Highness the Empress." As the door closed, the little princess voiced her confusion. "Why is my teacher you, and not Molia?" Unexpectedly, the next second, Wei looked heartbroken. "So I was the superfluous one." The princess was terrified. She hurried forward to comfort him. Wei took the opportunity to act pitiful. But the little princess saw right through him. Wei was very impressed. You actually saw through my masterful acting. You are so intelligent. But the next second, she was the one to reprimand him. That's a bad habit. You're a bad person. The little princess puffed out her chest, letting out her frustration. Because rather than testing each other, she just wanted to get along well with Wei. After all, she knew she would die before long. Wei froze on the spot. Your Highness, how did you know? The maid suddenly felt a chill down her spine. The next second, she was targeted by Wei-Tin's gaze. Unexpectedly, the little princess suddenly flew into a rage. The maid clearly didn't do anything. Why are you getting angry at her? Wei-Tin was momentarily at a loss for words and knelt on the ground to apologize sincerely. The next second, the tone changed abruptly. Then who exactly told you about the curse? The little princess stammered that it was the midwife. Wei-Tin asked in return, are you saying you could understand what people were saying right after you were born? I also heard father say that mother gave birth to something useless. Hearing this, Wei-Tin fell into deep thought. Unexpectedly, the next second, Wei-Tin had a sad expression. Then you must have been very sad. The little princess repeatedly shook her head. But her hand was grabbed by Wei-Tin, who then held it gently. The next second, he took out a gummy candy for the little princess. Soon after, this conversation also reached the emperor's ears. Are you saying a 3-year-old child has already seen through the meaning of death? Wei-Tin also hadn't expected that the little princess could say such things with a calm face. Not only that, Her Highness the Princess also remembers everything she has heard from birth until now. The Emperor fell into deep thought upon hearing this. Doesn't that mean she also heard that excessive taunt? Wei-Tin was terrified. Your Majesty, did you really say that? Your subordinate thought that was just a joke Her Highness the Princess was playing on me. The Emperor frowned upon hearing this. At this moment, his heart was undoubtedly in turmoil. The next second, he spun around quickly. Wei-Tin, it looks like you've come to condemn me. I wouldn't dare. I just came to relay this matter to you. From that day on, Wei-Tin would come to the little princess's room every day. Besides not being able to learn swordsmanship, the little princess and Wei-Tin could do many other things. For example, drawing a portrait of her father for Wei-Tin. His eyes widened. Your Highness the Princess, did someone give this to you? The little princess's smug smile reached her ears. Good heavens, are you saying you drew this yourself? The little princess was overjoyed. That's right. Is my drawing good? It's not just good, it couldn't be more perfect. It's as if the soul of the artist Michelian is trapped in your body. The little princess stared blankly at Wei-Tin. Why is a soul trapped in a body? Invading another's flesh must be the work of an evil spirit. This situation is usually called possession. The little princess was stunned. Wei-Tin quickly explained that he was joking, and that the Holy Knight Order would also protect the little princess. Wei-Tin has a friend who is a member. I'll introduce you someday. The little princess quickly refused. He must be very busy. It's okay. The next second, Wei-Tin looked at the princess before him, somewhat lost in thought. He thought to himself, how could there be such an adorable person in this world? If Her Highness gets a boyfriend in the future, that would be. Wait, a boyfriend? Unless he can survive 3 rounds against me, I won't approve. In the evening, Wei-Tin brought the painting to the Emperor. But the Emperor thought Wei-Tin had picked up a piece of trash from somewhere to give him. Wei-Tin was immediately displeased. This is a masterpiece created by Her Highness the Princess, who is only 3 years old. The eyes in particular are drawn so perfectly. The Emperor was stunned for 2.5 seconds. You're saying Isabel drew this? Yes, and what surprised me the most is the princess's power of observation. Although Her Highness hasn't seen you many times, and not for long, her detailed portrayal of you is truly astonishing. And such profound observation stems precisely from a sincere love for you. The Emperor fell into deep thought as he looked at the painting. Wei-Tin continued, I'm truly envious of Her Majesty the Emperor. I heard the princess also said I love you to you last time, right? You didn't even have to try. I even asked a master chef to make several gummy candies, and I still haven't heard her say I love you once. And she only occasionally calls me a dung beetle. This is too unfair. The Emperor thundered. What are you trying to say? Stop beating around the bush. I know you didn't come here just for such a trivial matter. Wei-Tin's expression suddenly became very solemn. You might not believe this if I say it, but Her Highness the Princess seems to possess a talent in magic technology that surpasses everyone. The Emperor was shocked on the spot. You mean magic technology? Yes, Your Majesty. Therefore, I have a proposal. why don't we let that person become Isabel's magic teacher? You should know that in the entire imperial city, there are very few people who can even reach the threshold of magic technology. And the little princess, with her innate incantation, her ability to resonate with mana, her excellent hands-on skills, and her keen observation, has proven her talent. As for the most decisive final point, it is the little princess's talent in mathematics. Her Highness can accurately calculate the number of gummy candies and then use it to blackmail me. In summary, I believe Her Highness the Princess is born with extremely outstanding magic talent. The Emperor fell into deep thought upon hearing this and agreed to Wei-Tin's proposal. On the other hand, the princess was not feeling good at all. Looking at the familiar yet strange figure before her, the little princess just wanted to escape this dreadful place immediately. Because this leader of the Holy Knight Order in front of her was the most terrifying ultimate villain in this novel, the woman Karen. 3 months passed quietly. The little princess's room was filled with all sorts of refreshments, but not a trace of happiness could be seen on her face, because the final villain of this novel's world was currently sitting in front of her, leisurely drinking coffee. The next second, the other person sensed that something was wrong. Your Highness the Princess, are you feeling unwell anywhere? No, I feel fine. The little princess shook her head repeatedly in fear. In her memory, the Karen in front of her was an ambitious, ultimate black magician. In the original novel, she was a cunning and intelligent woman who would do anything to achieve her goals. In order to take the throne of the strongest magician in the Empire Federation, she even betrayed the teacher who had trained her for 10 years. She was a perverted black magician who could deceive everyone in the Empire with her innocent appearance. Later, she took control of the Magic Association and even attempted to expand her territory to rule the entire continent. Thus, she began a fierce confrontation with the Emperor of the Swordsmanship Empire, who was also the novel's male lead, Aaron. However, Aaron had the protagonist's plot armor. No matter how powerful the villain was, she could never defeat the protagonist. So after losing to Aaron several times, she despicably cast the fatal Nevidar curse on the female lead. This caused the female lead to close her eyes forever after conveying her last words to the male lead. But strangely, the novel ended right there. At the time, she thought the female lead had just died like that. However, at that moment, the novel's plot took a shocking turn. No one had expected that the female lead, who lived among them day to day, was actually from the noble dragon clan. And in this world setting, dragons were the creators of all magic and the only existence that could nullify the Nevidar curse. In other words, the curse of a mere human magician would have no effect on her at all. From then on, the female lead unlocked her sealed dragon clan memories and lived happily ever after with the male lead, Aaron. Logically speaking, Karen was the ultimate final villain who could contend with the strongest male lead and female lead. According to the timeline, she shouldn't have appeared for another 18 years. But why has the ultimate villain already appeared when I'm only 3 years old? The little princess's expression grew increasingly grim. Karen looked worried. Your Highness the Princess, are you really not feeling well? It's over. The 3-year-old princess had encountered the biggest problem of her life. Because it was mentioned in the original novel that Karen had an extreme talent for seeing through people's hearts and grasping their weaknesses. And it was because she saw that the female lead was different from others that she chose to target her. Even the female lead was tragically persecuted, so wouldn't a side character like her? The more the little princess thought about it, the dizzier she felt. In order not to arouse the other's suspicion, she had to act more like a 3-year-old child. So, at the moment Karen was about to touch her, the little princess immediately buried her head and shouted, "I like Wei-Tin." Karen was stunned, then stated that her field of teaching was different from Wei-Tin's. Then I don't want you to teach me either. Are you saying you don't want to accept me as your magic teacher? Seeing no reaction from the other party, the little princess plopped right onto the ground. She started shouting and screaming, even beginning to throw a tantrum and roll around, wanting to use her status as a 3-year-old to make the other person back down. The loud noise startled the passing maid. However, a few minutes later, the little princess was still throwing her tantrum, thinking that her actions should at least make the other person waver a little. But Karen's reaction was unexpectedly calm. This made the little princess start to doubt her life, completely unsure of what to do next. Her gaze is so scary, and there's a chill different from the one Father Emperor has. Just then, the little princess suddenly remembered. Shouldn't the male lead be the one to stop Karen? But the male lead, Aaron's awakening, in the original novel, was inseparable from the long-term abuse by the villainous Isabel. But she herself is not the original owner of this body, and this Isabel has no intention of abusing the male lead. This means if she doesn't torture the male lead, he won't awaken. And an unawakened male lead, in a later part of the story, would be no match for the ultimate villain, Karen. It's over. Doesn't this mean that the ones facing the villain in the final battle will likely be her own family? And the strongest person so far is the little princess's father, His Majesty the Emperor of the current Sword Empire. It's just that in the days after losing the Empress, Father Emperor no longer possesses his former great strength. But if the little princess doesn't do bad things, she won't lose her mother, and Father Emperor won't become dispirited, right? On the other hand, Karen's final plan will begin in 20 years. Although she, who bears a curse, might already be dead by then, the little princess still decided to work hard to protect the family she considers a gift. And although Karen is the future great demon lord, right now, she's still racking her brain over how to coax a child. But after thinking it through, the little princess's attitude did a complete 360-degree turn. She said she just likes her big sister and wanted to act cute with her. This scene left Karen, who is opposite her, completely bewildered. To protect her family, the little princess must maintain her superb acting skills at all times, not letting the other party see any flaws. The next morning, Karen came to give the little princess her lesson as usual. After a few knocks on the door, Karen carefully walked into the princess's room. But unexpectedly, as soon as she entered, the little princess pounced, pulling her into the room. Seeing that no one was around, the little princess first made a should gesture. Then, under Karen's slightly bewildered gaze, she took out the peach-flavored gummies she had extorted from Wayden. She said she had secretly hidden them just to give to her teacher. For now, the plan to win favor by giving gifts was going quite smoothly. After a few days of observation, the little princess discovered that capturing the heart of the ultimate villain, Karen, that was not that simple. So, she had to at least use her cute appearance to make her lower her guard. So in the following lessons, the little princess would always proactively ask a long string of questions, such as teacher Karen's age, when she learned magic, and whether she liked to eat peaches. She had asked these various questions to gather intelligence and didn't expect to get a reply. But unexpectedly, the outwardly cold Karen was actually a chatterbox. This made the little princess very confused because the woman in front of her didn't look like a villain at all. But just a few days ago, Karen had actually asked about the Nevidar curse. The little princess also answered patiently. The curse means that after I grow up and say goodbye to my family, I will die quietly. The little princess's overly calm tone made Karen very puzzled. Don't you feel sad? But for the little princess, her current life was a gift from heaven. So she was always grateful and tried to live happily. Of course, being able to meet teacher Karen in her lifetime was also a gift from heaven. She had thought that meeting Karen 20 years later would be a terrible thing. But as she thought about it, the little princess's mood began to grow complicated. If she were to suddenly leave, would everyone feel sad? The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. But when the little princess turned her head to look at Karen again, she found that the other's eyes were already filled with tears. The little princess was stunned. The vicious ultimate villain was actually crying for her. Faced with this sudden turn of events, the little princess didn't know how to react and could only do her best to comfort the other person. Karen wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. Facing the young, yet so brave little princess, Karen made a decision at this moment. She would help the little princess break free from this fatal curse. But the little princess's heart began to struggle at this moment, because in her memory, Karen would, no matter what, choose to betray her own teacher. Then she would use her position as the chief magician to launch an unprecedented war. From that moment on, war became Karen's sole reason for living. But this extremely gentle teacher Karen before her, no matter how she looked at her, didn't seem like that kind of treacherous villain. 6 months passed by quietly. The little princess faced the first magic aptitude test of her life. Karen took out a seemingly ordinary stone from her pocket. The little princess needed to imagine her magic power as a liquid and inject it into the test stone before her. In the next second, a vast amount of energy was released from the little princess's palm. Under Karen's shocked gaze, it dyed the originally dim stone into a sparkling, multicolored hue. You see, ordinary people can only produce one color. Multicolored energy was something Karen had only ever seen in an extremely ancient secret manual. The shocked Karen decided to have the little princess continue with the next test. The original task was just to have the little princess levitate the stone in her palm. However, the stone's flight path did not go as she had wished. The little princess thought the test had failed, but unexpectedly, Karen explained that the energy just now was enough to pierce through the tabletop. Fortunately, she had secretly used her own magic to offset most of the impact. Therefore, Karen gradually came to a conclusion. The little princess sitting opposite her might be a once-in-a-millennium, naturally gifted legendary magician. From that day on, the little princess followed Karen around every day to learn magic. Before she knew it, the little princess was already 4 years old. But Karen started acting more and more indifferent. That day, the little princess was trying her best to act cute towards teacher Karen. In return, she only got Karen's blank stare and a half-minute of silence. After letting out a cold sigh, she turned and left. This scene scared the little princess so much her legs trembled, because that was the look Karen used in her memories when observing an enemy. Meanwhile, on the other side, Karen had just returned to her room. She recited a spell to block out all surrounding sounds and lay quietly on her bed alone. The outwardly extremely calm Karen, in the next second, was hugging a doll and rolling around excitedly on the bed. It turned out the little princess's cute act just now that had shattered the last line of defense in her heart. She tossed and turned for 2.5 minutes before calming down. It turned out Karen's usual cold demeanor was all an act. After all, her friend Wayden had already been driven to early retirement by the little princess's cuteness attack. To make the little princess a magician even more outstanding than herself, she must learn to control her emotions. The 6-year-old Karen also had extremely tragic memories. Abandoned by her parents at an orphanage since childhood, she showed outstanding abilities at a young age. She was confessed to by a nearby rich young master and rejected him. The result was being cornered and beaten up, even though she fought back with all her might. But in the eyes of others, it was seen as rebellious and disobedient behavior. She thought she would languish in this place until the end of her life, until teacher William discovered her talent and took her from the orphanage. This allowed her to see hope for the first time in her life. She thought she could escape her nightmarish life, but little did she know she had just jumped from the frying pan into the fire. William, known to the world as the angel magician, was actually a beast in human form, a complete pervert. Thus, the young Karen no longer believed in fate, until one day, the anger in her heart made her turn revenge into her goal for living. There was no imagined outburst. Instead, she lived for revenge in an extremely calm state. Just like that, on her 20th birthday, she became the Empire's youngest genius magician. And 2 years later, she happened to get the news that the Sword Empire's little princess was looking for a magic teacher. Originally, Karen only wanted to use this opportunity to study the Nevidar mark on the little princess. But the little princess's appearance was like a warm ray of sunshine in Karen's dim life. The moment she knew the other person considered her a gift from heaven, that she felt sad for someone else for the first time. In that instant, Karen saw her past self in the little princess. Actually, she really wanted to tell the girl, "You haven't done anything wrong," and a heavy burden on the little princess, that she would carry it together with her. Karen went to the emperor and told him that the little princess would officially begin her magic training starting tomorrow. Her Highness the Princess will surely become an excellent magician. But the emperor told her, the princess has the blood of a Rhodian. It's not surprising that she's excellent. Karen didn't expect the emperor to say that. Everyone in the world thinks the emperor doesn't care about his only princess. Since the princess cannot learn the Varodian Empire's swordsmanship, it's normal for such rumors to appear. However, the truth seems to differ from the rumors. The emperor's expression looked as if he was proud of the little princess, and he handed over the matter of the expenses for the little princess's magic training to Wayden. It's impossible that the emperor doesn't know the extent of Wayden's doting on the princess. In other words, the emperor is just pretending not to care on the surface. In reality, he cares a lot, but it seems he hasn't realized it himself yet. Or perhaps he's still in the denial phase of becoming a fan. Karen asked the emperor, "Aren't you curious about how much talent the princess has in magic?" The most important thing in learning magic is talent. People without talent can only reach a certain level, no matter how hard they try. Most people would think this is very important and would ask this question first. But the emperor just spoke arrogantly. It seems you've forgotten what this place is. This is the Sword Empire. Compared to outstanding magic, even a minor achievement in swordsmanship is more highly regarded. Karen got up, intending to leave, but the emperor stopped her. He stammered and asked, "Is the little princess happy?" Karen didn't expect the emperor to ask this. She just told the emperor, "The little princess imagines herself flying in the sky and laughs very happily." It was the first time Karen had met a father who asked such a question. In the past, everyone was most concerned about whether the child had talent and could become an excellent magician. Not a single person asked if the child was happy. It seems the rumor that the emperor dislikes the princess is false. The emperor didn't expect such a rumor to exist. But on the surface, he still pretended not to care. After Karen left, a loud noise came from the room. A few days later, to celebrate the upcoming birthday of the empire's emperor, not only delegations from various powers, but also many other people flocked to the empire. In the room, the empress was helping the emperor with his attire, reminding him that this was an important diplomatic event and that he shouldn't show his impatience too obviously. The emperor always listened to and obeyed the empress's words. In the banquet hall, the emperor and empress continuously met with various nobles. The chattering discussions also made the emperor feel annoyed. With the appearance of the piano player, the banquet officially began. And outside the castle, a servant finally found the little princess squatting on the ground. She showed the maid the beautiful flowers she had just found under a tree, and they even glowed. The little princess gave the flowers to the maid. The maid was so moved she started to cry. The little princess comforted her while marveling that after transmigrating, ever since she could walk on her own, that she no longer had the sickly body of her previous life. This made her feel very happy. But while she was still immersed in happiness, the surrounding atmosphere became strange. Even the maid had disappeared. The little princess looked around warily. Suddenly, a person wearing a black cloak and a mask stood before her. The little princess curiously asked him, "Who are you?" The person told her that he was considering whether to adopt the little princess. The little princess didn't understand. Isn't she the emperor's daughter? Why would she need to be adopted? She raised her head and looked stubbornly at the masked person. The masked person didn't speak, only persistently reached out his hand to take the princess away. He claimed he would raise the little princess to be an outstanding magician. The little princess refused him. After some careful deduction, that she recognized the identity of the masked person before her. That's right, it was Karen's adoptive father, and also the founding magician of the Morotel Magic Federation, William. The masked person vehemently denied it, but the little princess didn't fall for it and didn't believe him at all. The masked man looked at the little princess in confusion. What does this mean? Just then, Weyton rushed over. He was about to draw his sword at the masked person. A sword pierced into his body. He questioned how he dared to lay a hand on the princess. Weyton grabbed the masked person's hand. Unexpectedly, he pulled out the maid from within. Only then did Weyton realize that the reason the masked person didn't resist, that was because this wasn't his real body, but one created by magic. Clearly, the masked person had escaped this time, but Weyton would definitely find him. The maid worriedly asked if the little princess was scared. The little princess calmly told her she wasn't, and instead showed concern for the maid. Weyton looked at the princess's composure, which was unlike that of a 4- or 5-year-old child, and felt very sad. The little princess told him that with him around, she wasn't scared at all. She held Weyton's hand and told him that she believed in him. Hearing this, tears welled up in Weyton's eyes. He hugged the little princess tightly. The little princess also did not hesitate to return the embrace. But the matter just now wasn't over. The little princess asked Weyton, "Was that masked person William?" Weyton comforted the little princess. He told her he would definitely find out who the masked person was. Weyton still had to go on patrol and had already sent knights to protect the princess. He waved goodbye to the little princess. A child body has one advantage. While playing, they quickly forget what just happened. The little princess went on playing. The maid curiously asked what the little princess was doing. The little princess told her she had made a flower ring and wanted to give it to His Majesty the Emperor. The maid carried the little princess back to the castle. Soon, they arrived in front of the banquet hall, but were stopped by the guards at the door. It seemed they didn't recognize the little princess. She loudly told the 2 guards her identity. The two guards stood there dumbfounded. The little princess thought her imposing manner had scared them. Who knew that in the next second, the two guards would point at the little princess and say with a chuckle, "You can't impersonate Her Highness the Princess, you know." After all, not many people had seen what the little princess looked like now. Plus, she was all dirty. She anxiously asked the maid to put her down. She put her hands on her hips and seriously asked them, "Which unit do you belong to? What are your names?" The two looked at the little princess speechlessly. They didn't expect the little girl before them to be serious. They sighed helplessly. They told the maid to quickly take the little girl back. The little princess interrupted them and continued to question them. "Can guards ignore a princess? You are knights in charge of guarding the imperial banquet hall. Can't you even remember the appearance of a royal family member? If you don't recognize me, shouldn't you report to your superior for confirmation first, according to the rules?" Meanwhile, inside the banquet hall, William was presenting a gift he had personally made by infusing it with magic power to the emperor. The emperor and empress were seated in the seats of honor. The emperor was clearly a bit distracted. The empress reminded him to mind his etiquette. And just then, he seemed to hear Isabel's voice. He listened to the little princess's articulate questioning of the guards and felt very gratified. Meanwhile, the empress at his side looked at the completely unresponsive emperor. She had no choice but to speak up first and express her thanks to William. And just as the empress was speaking, the emperor stood up. He said in a powerful voice, "Bring the princess in." The two guards at the door looked as if they were facing a great enemy. They never expected the little girl before them to really be Her Highness the Princess. They hurriedly changed their attitude, wanting to escort the princess inside. But the little princess was very magnanimous and forgave them. She took a guard's hand and walked towards the banquet hall. If they really wanted to compensate her, buying her gummies or ice cream would be fine. When the doors to the banquet hall opened, the little princess walked in. She walked step by step towards the emperor, but the crowd below was buzzing with discussion. The little princess looked all dusty. It seems the rumors were true. This was a child abandoned by the royal family. The emperor obviously heard the discussions below and glared at the crowd. But the little princess was not affected at all. She came before the emperor and presented the flower ring she had made. The emperor also personally came before her. He looked at the sparkling flower ring in the little princess's hand and gazed at her with eyes full of affection. "So you got into this messy state just to make this, huh?" The little princess grabbed her father's hand without another word. She put the ring on it. The emperor's hand trembled slightly. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. He sincerely thanked Isabel. Later that night, Empress Serna told the emperor that his actions at the banquet had caused a heated discussion. His Majesty, who had been expressionless throughout the entire banquet, actually smiled after his daughter appeared. The emperor denied that he had smiled. The empress looked at his stubbornness and directly called him out. After all, the emperor had even chosen the flower ring, which would obstruct a swordsman's flow of magic power, as the best gift. The empress couldn't help but chuckle. And recently, due to the birthday activities, the emperor had been unable to handle diplomatic affairs. He would be busy from now on. He wouldn't be able to see the little princess for at least 3 or 4 months. The emperor said nothing. He just took the empress's hand and kissed it lightly. The two then fell asleep. A few days later, while the little princess was eating snacks, but the emperor walked in. The little princess dropped her food and ran towards the emperor. The emperor told her that he and the empress would not be coming over for a while. The little princess was very surprised and quickly asked why. The emperor only told her that the adults had things to attend to. He promised to be back before the little princess's birthday. The little princess lowered her head and fiddled with her fingers. It would be a whole 8 months, and during the days the adults were away, the little princess would miss them very much. The emperor placed a light kiss on the little princess's head and promised her he would come back as soon as possible. Weaton, waiting outside the door, felt defeated. Her Highness the Princess only told him to be careful. He felt that he had lost to His Majesty the Emperor, but the Emperor had never considered him a rival. And time quickly passed. 8 months later, it was the little Princess Isabel's 5th birthday. Now, she could express her thoughts fluently and was more adept at using her body. Everything was fine, except that her lifespan was decreasing day by day. But on this day, there was still no news of the Emperor and Empress's return. At 11:55 that night, with only 5 minutes left, the little princess's birthday was about to end. She and the maid were planning to light the candles and eat the cake. The little princess personally lit the candles and made a wish, hoping that on her next birthday, her father and mother would be by her side. And just as the little princess was about to blow out the candles, a sound came from the doorway. His Majesty the Emperor had rushed back, travel-worn. The little princess looked at the blood-stained emperor and couldn't help but worry. Just then, the empress also rushed over, scolding the emperor for not washing up first. He was afraid he wouldn't make it in time for the princess's birthday. The empress hugged the little princess tightly, sincerely wished her a happy birthday, and apologized for being late. Hearing this, the little princess's eyes filled with tears, and she couldn't help but cry out loud. The empress held her tightly. The little princess felt this gentle and comfortable embrace. She had never felt such warmth in her previous life. Gradually, she fell asleep in this warm embrace. In the morning, the little princess woke up in her soft, big bed. She casually looked over and saw the emperor sitting by her bedside. She softly called out, "Papa." The emperor pretended to be serious and said the little princess had no manners. The little princess didn't seem to mind at all, saying, "I'm sorry, Father Emperor." She ran to the emperor's side and asked if she could call him Papa in private. The emperor agreed without a second thought. But the little princess thought that since she was already 5 years old, she should also pay attention to decorum and refinement. But the emperor mercilessly exposed her. "You were wailing your eyes out last night." The little princess raised her head and told the emperor, "Having Papa by my side, I feel very happy." The emperor couldn't help but blush. The little princess didn't notice this and asked the emperor if he had been here all night. The emperor explained that he was too tired and had unconsciously fallen asleep here. The little princess's mind went blank. As the Empire's strongest swordsman, the original novel said that he had vast and powerful magic power like the universe within him and had once fought for 2 consecutive weeks without sleep. And such a person would actually say he's tired. The little princess wished her father would be tired every day. Even if it was just an excuse, she could be with her father all the time. Or maybe just on her birthday. There should be 16 times left. Hearing this, the emperor trembled slightly and his face darkened. The emperor stood up and said, "It seems I'll have to have Karen reteach you math. A small number like 16 is not even worth my notice." The little princess stood there, stunned. The emperor hugged her, thinking about what he could do so that the biggest number left for the little princess would no longer be 16. This matter made him extremely weary. The little princess felt her father's warm embrace and started crying loudly again. The emperor wiped her tears. Only then did the little princess remember her mother. But the empress had left early in the morning for some business, and the emperor also had to pack up and leave. According to Arena, today was the day the little princess was moving residences. The emperor would take her there. The little princess happily held out her hand. The Arena Palace is where the royal children live. Young royals first live in a separate palace. After turning 5, they move into the Arena Palace. Although generally speaking, moving into the Arena Palace is the beginning of their involvement in politics. However, the little princess was only looking forward to seeing her royal brothers. After all, to this day, she still couldn't forget the faces she saw during the selection ceremony, which seemed like a gift from the heavens. However, only the third prince, Michel, was currently living in the palace. The other princes, due to their respective missions and heir training, were apparently unable to stay at the Arena Palace. I'll just have to get close to my third brother first. Anyway, I don't intend to start any court disputes. And so, escorted by the emperor, the little princess arrived smoothly at the Arena Palace. The person in charge of managing the palace was the chief aide, Teresa, and she greeted them. Looking at their clasped hands, she asked uncertainly, "Did His Majesty bring you here himself?" The little princess stepped forward to curtsy and introduced herself to him. Teresa explained that a princess does not need to bow to an aide. But the little princess said, "I heard that 10 years ago, you rescued Father Emperor from Bingpa. At that time, you risked your life to save Father Emperor, killed 37 enemies, and even earned the Silver Star Medal. But for the sake of Father Emperor's honor, you refuse the conferment of the medal. Teresa was once an outstanding sword master who commanded one of the strongest fleets, the Black Gold. She was seriously injured after rescuing the Father Emperor, which is why she took on the position of chief aide. The little princess smiled and told her she was just giving her the courtesy she deserved. As a princess, she respected her dedication even more. However, this was the arena palace, and her current position was chief aide. Therefore, from now on, she would treat her as the chief aide. The emperor, listening from the side, nodded frequently. Teresa, on the other hand, was so shocked she was speechless. She never expected Her Highness the Princess to be so mature, not at all like a 5-year-old child, and possessing such a princely demeanor. The emperor handed the little princess over to Teresa and left. Teresa led the little princess inside. Suddenly, a person jumped out in front of them, shouting, "My competitor has finally appeared." The person who appeared was the third prince, Michel. Teresa helplessly admonished him not to jump down from the upper floor. But Michel righteously said that Arthur had told him that as long as his swordsmanship was good, that's all that mattered. Arthur was Teresa's husband and also one of the prince's swordsmanship instructors. The little princess sized up Michel, who wasn't much bigger than her. As a descendant of the Varodian family, their bodies grow fast. At 9 years old, he should at least look like a 10 to 15-year-old child. The little princess stepped forward to greet him. Michel was very surprised that the little princess recognized him. The little princess told him that they had met at the selection ceremony. Michel was even more surprised. He didn't expect her to remember what happened back then. Of course, the little princess remembered. She directly called out Brother Michel. "Actually, you don't remember what you said back then, do you?" Teresa stood aside, quietly watching the two who were about to argue. It seemed the third prince was about to start acting shamelessly. The little princess pointed at the third prince and relentlessly questioned him, giving him no chance to react. Michel felt like his world was collapsing. He didn't remember anything, and how did his little sister know what he was thinking? But the little princess asked him, "You're very strong, right? A strong person admits to the past they don't remember and learns from it. Aren't you a strong and handsome person, brother?" Michel was completely lost in the little princess's flattery. The twitching corners of his mouth betrayed his inner joy. In an instant, he accepted the little princess and even promised to introduce her to his friends next time. Teresa was stunned as she watched from the side. It's amazing. The third prince, who always acts spoiled, is so well behaved in front of the princess. In the days that followed, the little princess came to the arena palace. Her daily routine didn't change much, except for the addition of a special teacher, the swordsmanship instructor Arthur. But since the little princess didn't need to learn swordsmanship, Arthur was troubled about how to teach her. He suggested playing house with the little princess, but Teresa quickly vetoed the idea. It seemed Arthur had forgotten something else and was being scolded by Teresa. The little princess was also frightened by Teresa, shrinking to the side, afraid to speak. Just then, Michel ran over. It turned out he was late for class. Both he and Arthur had forgotten about the lesson. With him was another little creature. This was the new friend Michel wanted to introduce to the little princess. The little princess froze on the spot. At that moment, she didn't know that this animal would completely change her reincarnated life. Michel excitedly introduced it to her. This little guy was just fighting against 5 lions. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Michel was late because he was rescuing it. Arthur admired this chivalrous spirit. He shouldn't be blamed, but praised. Everyone looked at the actual person in charge, Teresa. Just as she was about to speak, the little princess tugged at her sleeve. She told her she was hungry and wanted to eat, interrupting her before she could punish Michel for being late. The days passed one by one. The little princess studied magic with Karen step by step, but the little princess still sensed something strange. Karen was even more serious than before. She must be planning something in her heart. But at least Karen's magical abilities were real. She asked Karen, "Can you sense a subtle flow of mana from the honey badger?" It turned out that from their first meeting, the little princess had sensed something unusual. Karen told her that although it was uncommon, this could happen if the honey badger ate magic crystals containing mana. And the little princess could also feel that she could use this magic to do something. This was an astonishing magical intuition. It's very rare for someone to be able to grasp the flow of magic involuntarily. They're what people call a genius. Karen asked her if she could feel specifically what could be done. The little princess wasn't sure about the specifics, only that she felt she should be able to become friends with the honey badger. Karen decided to study it together with the little princess. Afterward, Karen increased the duration and frequency of their lessons and began to study with the little princess. For a transmigrator who had gotten into the top university in her past life, this level of study was still a piece of cake. While Karen marveled at the little princess's talent, she also keenly sensed that something was wrong and questioned who had taught the little princess. The little princess could only brush it off vaguely, telling her it was something she already knew. This was simply a genius among geniuses. Karen invited the little princess to attend a conference with her. The little princess didn't really want to go. She didn't care about the outside world and had no ambition for fame or achievement. These reputations were nothing compared to the time spent with everyone, because the princess didn't have much time left. Karen also understood what the little princess was thinking, which made her very sad. Unexpectedly, the little princess began to comfort her. In the end, the little princess agreed to let Karen attend the conference as her proxy. The little princess extended her hand to Karen. Looking at the curse mark on the little princess's body, she thought to herself, I must save the princess no matter what, even if it means trading my life for hers. Meanwhile, Michelle was playing with the honey badger. Inadvertently, the honey badger attacked Michelle fiercely. The little princess, having finished her class, slowly approached them and told Michelle that the honey badger was not happy about being bullied every time, so it was fighting back. Both Michelle and the honey badger were stunned. Michelle asked her how she knew. The little princess told him that the magic formula she created this time was translation magic. Michelle was shocked again. His little sister was already learning magic, and the honey badger, which fought with Michelle every day, pounced directly into the little princess's arms, rubbing comfortably against her. The two held out their hands, sensing each other. Michelle watched blankly from the side. The connection between the two was successful. He could also hear the honey badger speak, and the first thing the honey badger said was, I hate you. Michelle was not happy about this, and the two started arguing again. But the honey badger ignored him, just staying in the little princess's arms, asking the little princess to be its master and to give it a name. The little princess thought seriously, racking her brains to come up with the name Golden Honey. The honey badger really liked its new name. The little princess, holding golden honey, went to find Karen. Karen hadn't expected that during her absence, the little princess had already completed the magical theory and conducted experiments. It seemed the princess's magical talent was definitely stronger than she had imagined. Karen praised the little princess generously and was full of expectations for the future. The little princess really liked golden honey and was almost always stuck to it. Holding it made her mood better, but she hadn't held it for long. Golden honey was mercilessly taken away by Michelle. Even his servants found it amazing. Golden honey was only friendly to the little princess. The little princess explained on its behalf that golden honey was just very shy. She liked it a lot and was even going to specifically learn some cold magic that golden honey liked. Meanwhile, Michelle and golden honey were fighting again, but Michelle was no match for it. In the blink of an eye, the honey badger was gone. The escaped honey badger arrived in front of a cave. A beam of magical light surrounded it. The honey badger's sharp claws gradually transformed into a human form. The fur on its face also gradually receded. A handsome young boy appeared in the cave. The boy's name was Aaron. Just a moment ago, he was a honey badger. A woman walked out from the depths of the cave. The boy called her mother. The woman asked him what he had learned today, but Aaron didn't remember anything. The woman told him that he is a 100-year-old young dragon. He must constantly awaken his self-awareness so he won't forget who he is. The woman placed her hand on the boy's head, checking everything that had happened to the boy today. But the boy didn't remember anything that had happened. The woman took the boy back to his room. Aaron didn't understand why his mother made him transform every day. The woman told him a story. A long time ago, there was a black dragon. He was a predator from birth. Without needing to try, he stood at the top of the food chain and was very bored. So, with nothing to do, he bullied the weak every day to show off his power. But one day, he met a human. The human gave the black dragon a ring and promised to make him happy. The black dragon agreed. The humans slowly stopped the slaughter. From then on, the dragon race also began to realize that they were not perfect, so they established a law. During their youth, like Aaron, they must engage in various activities and experiences. living as other animals, is also something young dragons must experience. They must understand the thoughts of other races and empathize with them. These experiences will take root deep in their souls. The memories from the transformation will be sealed. But Aaron asked the woman what golden honey was. The woman realized something was wrong. Aaron couldn't remember these things, or his identity as a dragon might be shaken. Could it be related to that young girl? Meanwhile, the little princess was also listening to the legend of the Black Rock Dragon. The little princess felt an unprecedented fear, as if the Black Rock Dragon were really right beside her. Arthur comforted her. The brave knight had already taught the bad black dragon a lesson. Now the black dragon no longer does bad things, and has promised to become a good dragon that helps the knight. Since then, the Black Rock Dragon became the guardian dragon, Lily, protecting the royal family. But in her previous life, the guardian dragon had never appeared in the novel. The one who truly protected the royal family was the emperor. In the days that followed, the little princess made for golden honey, a magic stone that could blow a cool breeze. Golden honey loved it. Meanwhile, in the palace's underground warehouse, Wayatin was amazed to find that the entire underground warehouse was frozen by mana. Who on earth did this? And this mana lingering around was so familiar. Wayatin found the emperor. He wanted to first capture William and torture that kid. At the gift-giving ceremony, the look in his eyes when he looked at the princess was full of greed. That kind of filthy look. Both Wayatin and the emperor saw it clearly. Even if there was no evidence now, they could still capture him first to give the real culprit a warning. The emperor agreed, but Wayatin awkwardly told the emperor that William wasn't caught. He had run away. Wayatin immediately changed the subject, warning the emperor about the situation in the underground warehouse. The entire underground warehouse was frozen, as if caused by an accidental mana leak. Wayatin's mother was like this when she was young. It's a sign of exceptionally outstanding talent. In short, the shocking point is that the princess's magic should be what froze the warehouse. The emperor looked at him calmly, not showing any surprise about the matter. Wayatin was dissatisfied with the emperor's reaction. He emphasized to the emperor the power of this kind of magic. To be able to cause such a result with just leaked mana is incredible. From this, it can be seen that the princess's innate mana level and capacity are beyond imagination. Wayatin excitedly told the emperor that the princess was a magical genius, a genius beyond imagination. Unexpectedly, the emperor's reaction was still calm. "She's my daughter. It's natural for her to have such talent." It turned out the emperor had known all along and believed in the princess's extraordinary abilities. Time flew, and it was winter again. This was already the 5th winter the little princess had welcomed. The little princess's life was very fulfilling. She was mostly self-studying magic. The study of theories and formulas was so interesting that she often lost track of time. She heard that William had disappeared. Wayatin had also left the palace on a mission. The city of Shaching might be related to this matter. And Karen also returned very late. Could it also be related to her adoptive father's disappearance? Were they plotting something? Now is not the time to think about these things. There aren't many days left to live in the future. It's better to focus on the present. The princess then immersed herself in her studies again. Just then, a sound came from the door. It was Michelle and the honey badger calling for the princess to go sledding. He knew a really fun place. The little princess had never been sledding before. She was very excited. Michelle was very satisfied with the little princess's reaction and readily agreed to build her a snowman as well. The little princess was even more excited and immediately agreed to go play with Michelle. But just as the two were about to leave, Teresa stopped them. Without a guardian, the two of them could not go out. Michelle and the little princess looked as if they'd been struck by lightning. Instructor Arthur stepped forward. But he was also rejected by Teresa. She didn't trust Arthur to take care of 2 children. Just then, another person walked in. It was Wayatin. Seeing her teacher whom she hadn't seen for a long time, the little princess ran quickly into Wayatin's arms. Wayatin was instantly melted by the adorable little princess. This warm and loving scene was quickly ruined by golden honey. The little princess quickly picked it up, apologized to Wayatin, and said that this was her friend. And so, with Wayatin's guarantee, the princess and Michelle were allowed to go play outside. The little princess was very happy. After all, counting her past life, this was her first time sledding. It was just too exciting. But when the little princess actually arrived at the place, she had still underestimated Michelle. She never expected to be sledding in a place like this. In such a dangerous place, why on earth is there a teleportation gate? This is a magical engineering device that uses magic to achieve instant teleportation. Its construction and daily maintenance require a lot of money. So even within the Imperial Palace, they are not common. Such an expensive teleportation gate was actually set up on a mountaintop like this. The little princess was terrified of falling from here. She could die. Weyton had no choice but to hold her. On the contrary, Michelle thought that sledding in a place like this was what made it exciting. In the blink of an eye, he and Golden Honey rushed down. The little princess looked at the pitch-black valley below and ultimately didn't go sledding. She was carried back by Weyton. After returning to the arena palace, the little princess asked the question that was on her mind. Why was a teleportation gate set up on the mountaintop? Weyton told her that it was Mount Elway. The little princess knew this place. The Elway Mountains are located in the northernmost part of the continent. Above the north is land that humans have not been able to occupy. Beyond the Elway Mountains to the north is the empire of another race, Mutandian. Weyton was clearly stunned by the princess's amazing knowledge. His affection for the little princess grew by several degrees. But the little princess's next words left him frozen on the spot. The little princess said that Weyton had made her very sad today. When the little princess was very scared on the mountaintop, Weyton was just happy. The little princess felt that he didn't seem to have taken her feelings and thoughts into account. Weyton was silent. He quietly looked at the princess. He knelt down to be at eye level with the little princess and spoke sincerely. I was just happy that the princess could feel fear. I was happy that even when facing the most terrifying thing in the world, the princess wasn't afraid at all. The calm way you face death, it pained my heart to see. I was so sad I didn't know what to do. When the princess said she was afraid of dying and even burrowed into my arms because she was so scared, I was very happy. I like seeing the princess look scared. The little princess listened intently. She had no idea Weyton had such thoughts. He looked very pitiful. She reached out to comfort Weyton, but her stomach rumbled at an inopportune moment, instantly ruining the sad atmosphere. Weyton looked gently at the little princess. After taking the little princess to eat sandwiches while playing with Arthur, the little princess mentioned the scene she saw on the mountaintop. There were guards standing watch. They were in such a cold place, preventing the invasion of demons and other races, yet they couldn't use the teleportation gate. Sledding in front of them made the little princess feel ashamed. Moreover, activating the teleportation device just once costs a huge amount of money. Besides members of the royal family, it can only be used for national emergencies. The little princess felt this was wrong. There must be a reason why the royal family can freely use the teleportation gate to go to the Elway Mountains. It was to let them experience the Elway Mountains firsthand, to see the soldiers who work hard to protect the peace and tranquility of the Empire, and to learn more from it. Arthur agreed with the princess's statement. Although this meaning has faded now, the original intention was just as the princess said. The princess told Arthur that she had an idea recently. She wanted to create a teleportation gate that workers could use frequently. She told this idea to Karen, but Karen said that with current technology and theory, it was simply impossible. The little princess told Karen that she sensed a similar flow of mana from the teleportation gate as she did during the translation magic with Golden Honey. So she made something and asked Karen to help her take a look. Karen took the Sibyllin magic stone that the little princess had already designed. Staring at the stone, Karen suddenly jolted. This was a magical engineering theory she hadn't taught yet. Karen's interest was piqued, and she asked the little princess to continue. The little princess took out her research results and explained the specific theory and implementation method to Karen. This Sibyllin magic stone incorporated this theory. Simply put, it was to achieve maximum efficiency with the least possible energy and cost. This theory could overcome the shortcomings of the gate. This was a concept that did not exist in the world. Karen smiled with satisfaction. It seemed the princess truly possessed a heaven-sent talent. That night, Karen found Weyton. She told him about the little princess's theory. If a system could be built, the princess would be worthy of winning an award in the academic world. Karen's abilities were no longer sufficient to teach the princess. She needed a more outstanding magician, a magician proficient in magical concepts and basic theories, as well as knowledge of engineering. Karen closed her eyes tightly and slowly said that in this country, only William could. But Weyton told her that William had already gone into hiding. Karen was silent for a long time, then told Weyton that she should be able to find him. Although every moment with William was a nightmare and a long winter for her, if it was for the princess, for the sake of protecting her master, she was willing to be the spring that arrives at the end of a long, cold winter. Karen decided that before she left, she should at least tell the princess. She came to the door of the princess's room, knocked, and was about to enter. As soon as she opened the door, a sharp sword thrust towards her. It was Weyton. What was he doing? It turned out this was all the little princess's command. She had asked Weyton to help her stop teacher Karen, so she couldn't go anywhere else. Weyton pulled out a rope from somewhere. The little princess also stood up. Karen was too strong. She couldn't handle her alone, so she called for Weyton. Karen, however, was in a daze. By the time she reacted, her hands had been tied by the little princess, complete with a beautiful bow. Karen asked her why she was doing this. The little princess held her hand tightly, telling her not to go looking for William. A frightening, evil aura surrounded him, and under that William, Karen would eventually become the final boss. For the sake of her own life, the princess was determined to stop Karen. Finally, under the little princess's pitiful pleading, Karen promised not to go looking for William. The little princess was finally relieved. After Karen left, the little princess told Weyton with some annoyance that although she didn't want teacher Karen to leave, she could understand her teacher's good intentions. Now, she just had to introduce someone better than William. She had read in a book before about a magic engineering eccentric who was expelled by the Merodel Magic Federation and later went to the Elway Mountains. She heard his name was Tassarin. He was a very outstanding magic engineer and also a future companion of the male lead, Aaron. The Merodel Magic Federation had placed a ban on this notoriously willful eccentric, forcing him to go to the Elway Mountains. But in reality, he wasn't caught. He only went to the Elway Mountains intentionally for the freedom to research magic engineering. Later, he became a companion to the male protagonist due to their shared interests, providing him with great help. He was the male protagonist's companion. The description in the book was very detailed, so the princess remembered that if it was this person, he should be able to help teacher Karen. But the Elway Mountains are vast. Finding someone there would not be easy at all. After hearing the little princess's words, Weyton agreed without the slightest hesitation. The little princess looked at Weyton and smiled happily. In the evening, Weyton found the emperor practicing his swordsmanship. He reported to him that he needed to go to the Elway Mountains. Therefore, the task of tailing William might have to be assigned to someone else. To Weyton's surprise, the emperor readily agreed. He even approved Weyton's use of the teleportation gate. After all, as the little princess grew, the day of the curse was drawing nearer. Night fell. Urged by her maid, the little princess prepared for bed. Another day had passed safely. I hope I didn't say anything wrong when I stopped Karen. I also asked the maid to help me find books related to Tassarin. Even a small clue could become leverage for me, so I must be careful. If they find out I'm a transmigrator, the Order of Knights will be the first to drag me away. Just as the little princess was thinking, the room's window opened for some reason, making her jump in fright. The little princess sat up. The maid had clearly locked the window. Who could it be? A dark shadow quietly appeared by the bed. It slowly moved towards the little princess. The little princess gripped the bedsheets, her fear reaching its peak. Could it be William, who had been missing for a long time? Just as the little princess was about to scream in fear, the shadow forcefully touched her cheek. The familiar touch pulled the princess out of her fear. It turned out to be golden honey. She missed the little princess, so she came. Coincidentally, the little princess also wanted someone to accompany her. She felt she could rest easy sleeping with golden honey. And so, the two of them entered a sweet slumber together. A few days later, Weyton returned from the Elway Mountains. The little princess watched him with a pleasant surprise from upstairs. But this journey was truly hard to put into words. Weyton first encountered an insane number of magic traps, and it was on the monster-infested Galma Plateau. After countless hardships, he finally found a shack. But the surroundings were also covered in magic traps. Through Weyton's unrelenting efforts, he finally met Tassarin. Weyton revealed his identity and explained the purpose of his visit. He handed him the princess's letter. After reading it, Tassarin refused the princess's request and told Weyton to have the princess come in person. Then he disappeared. That's why Weyden had a look of defeat when he faced the princess. Weyden didn't want the princess to meet him. He thought Tassarin was an ignorant and terrifying human. But the little princess didn't think so. She knew that in the book, the male protagonist also suffered a lot when he first met Tassarin. The little princess blinked her innocent big eyes, begging Weyden to help her. In the end, Weyden couldn't resist the princess's charm offensive. Weyden brought the little princess to the Elway Mountains. Soon, he brought the little princess and found Tassarin once again. As soon as Weyden and Tassarin met, they started bickering again. The princess watched them and suddenly spoke up. So Tassarin is a vulgar person. Both men were shocked by the little princess's words. The little princess said sternly, "Adults who swear in front of children are all vulgar." But the princess didn't feel that Tassarin was unwelcoming to her. This caught Tassarin's attention. He let the little princess continue. Tassarin dislikes intruders, just like how Weyden encountered various magic traps. In the original book, the male protagonist, Aaron, was also injured while searching for Tassarin. But the little princess had a smooth journey here. If he truly didn't welcome them, he would have either strengthened the traps or already left this place. Tassarin said stubbornly, "It's just that the magic barrier malfunctioned." Then he invited the two inside. Tassarin even poured them tea to warm their hands. The little princess got straight to the point. "You study magic so diligently that it's actually because you want to help people, right? I'm very surprised. Why would a brilliant mage like you be expelled? It's probably because there are too many bad adults in this world. Those bad people are unwilling to part with what they have. That's why they hate Tassarin's research." Tassarin's beard trembled slightly. He sat there quietly without saying a word. In truth, Tassarin was fond of humans. When he was young, he had a dream to help everyone and make people happy. He wanted to share the magic enjoyed only by the privileged class with everyone. Even after being expelled from the mage tower that hated him, he continued to be a mage for the people. But the ones who drove him away were not others, but those very common people. The common people didn't trust Tassarin, who had been kicked out of the mage tower. Not a single person understood his true intentions. They pushed him to the brink every day. Tassarin's youthful dream was shattered just like that. But with the little princess's appearance, this was the first time someone acknowledged his ideas. The little princess promised she could help him with her status as a princess. And she wasn't an ordinary princess. She had less time than others, so every day was precious. She needed Tassarin. She longed for a more just world, because this world had given her a gift, a life of 20 years. So she wanted to repay this world. Tassarin couldn't help but be surprised as he looked at the brand before him. A child of only 5 years old actually considered such a short life a gift. At this moment, the little princess spoke softly, and in the palace, there's a Mihuan who gets along very well with me. Tassarin's old face blushed. The little princess knew from the book in her previous life that he was someone who was very fond of animals. Tassarin's heart was in a fierce struggle. In the end, he agreed to the little princess's request. He followed the princess's carriage all the way to the arena palace. The long journey made the princess drowsy. As for the elderly Tassarin, his stamina seemed to be overwhelmed. Everyone decided to rest for a while before discussing matters of magic. The little princess returned to her room, hugged Golden Honey, and fell into a sweet sleep. And at that very moment, a carriage was heading towards the arena palace. The little princess did not sleep peacefully. Early in the morning, she was awakened by a clamor outside the door. It was the maids' voices. She opened the door to see what was happening. Unexpectedly, the sight that greeted her was her own maid being bullied. The little princess was very angry, shouting loudly, "What are you doing? Answer me, Miss Reina." She was the apple of Duke Rosid's eye. The Roside family was the wealthiest family on the continent, in charge of the entire continent's finances. They were one of the two great dukedoms that watched the empire rise. To keep the imperial family in check, they had a close relationship with the Jianlin scholars, and Reina was Isabel's only friend in public in the novel. In reality, Reina sowed discord behind her back and was the worst of all bullies. Because of her instigation and incitement, the princess committed all sorts of evil deeds. This time, the little princess stood in front of the maid, protecting her with open arms. She rebuked, "Has the daughter of Duke Roside not learned any etiquette? Shouldn't you greet the princess first? Don't you even know that?" Reina was clearly intimidated by the little princess's imposing manner and properly curtsied to the princess. The little princess didn't press the matter further and asked Reina if she needed something. Reina spoke up. I heard you have a very precious toy, a rare animal that can understand human speech and communicate with people. Only then did the little princess realize she was talking about Golden Honey. She picked up Golden Honey, who had run out from the room, and told Reina, this is not a toy. This is my friend. Reina looked as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world, pointing scornfully at Golden Honey. Can this kind of toy be a friend? The little princess held Golden Honey tighter and reprimanded more sternly. This is not a toy. Reina said she understood, but then made an even more outrageous request. She wanted to buy Golden Honey. This time, before the little princess could speak, Golden Honey bit down hard on Reina's finger. Reina instantly burst into tears from a bite. The little princess explained, Golden Honey was just acting in self-defense. After all, Reina reached out first. Reina had never been wronged like this before. She cried and shouted at the princess that she would definitely file a formal objection, then ran off. The little princess wasn't afraid of her. After Reina left, she caringly asked if the maid had been hurt. Afterward, she washed up, got dressed, and went menacingly to the reception hall. There, she saw Reina crying in the Duke's arms. The Emperor spoke slowly. Since everyone is here, let's explain the whole story. The little princess made a preemptive move. Before that, I think one thing must be made clear. This occasion is to hold Miss Reina accountable for trampling on the royal family's honor. So, I must ask the Duke not to hold her. Reina's eyes instantly filled with tears. She buried her head in the Duke's arms and petulantly refused. The Duke also frowned upon hearing the little princess's words and asked what she meant. The princess told the Duke, Miss Reina called my friend a toy. But the Duke felt that ordinary people wouldn't call an animal a friend. The little princess continued her assault. Reina also asked me to sell my friend to her, even after I emphasized several times that my friend is not a toy. Reina sobbed in the Duke's arms. The Duke didn't believe what the little princess was saying. What's important now is that the animal hurt Reina. The little princess did not yield. What's important now is that Miss Reina insulted the imperial family. Golden Honey. Her name was chosen by me and Prince Michel together. In other words, the imperial family gave her a name, which means she belongs completely to the imperial family. But Miss Reina kept trying to claim her for herself. Is that not an insult to the imperial family? The Emperor, who had been listening from the main seat, now spoke coldly. Is it not yet clear whose fault it is? A drop of cold sweat instantly ran down the Duke's face. He immediately put Reina down and told her to apologize. Reina's face was full of resistance. At this moment, the Emperor spoke even more sternly. The imperial family only criticizes a mistake once. You should understand that you are lucky. The Duke now understood that the Emperor was truly angry. He hurriedly apologized to the Emperor, saying it was his fault for not educating his daughter well. Reina was still indignant. She turned to look at the little princess. But the little princess wasn't angry. She looked at her with a sweet smile. Are you the only one with a father? I have one too, and he's very handsome. Seeing this, Reina had no choice but to apologize to the little princess. The little princess didn't make things difficult for her. She extended her hand and said, let's get along well from now on. The two finally shook hands and made peace. Afterward, the Duke and Miss Reina left in their carriage. Reina was very unhappy with the outcome and threw a tantrum in the carriage. The Duke had no choice but to coax her. Reina cried even harder, stating bluntly that she would never let the little princess get away with this. Meanwhile, after Tassarin had rested well, he was immediately captivated by the adorable Golden Honey. He made it a condition of being the little princess's teacher that Golden Honey would stay with him every day. Golden Honey looked resistant. The little princess had to beg him. No one could resist the little princess's charm, including animals. Golden Honey finally compromised. A week later, the little princess received a newspaper. The magic competition hosted by the Magic Federation was about to begin. Of course, the little princess would participate. Karen had already written her a letter of recommendation. But Tassarin didn't understand why she wanted to participate. The little princess didn't hide that it was for the prize money. If she won the prize money, she would become rich. The little princess wanted to help someone without being controlled by the Jinlin Academy. So the money couldn't come from the Imperial Palace. The newspaper usually published major and minor incidents from the previous week. This time, it was about a boy who was kicked out of the roadside ducal house. The boy's name was Nalmor. In the future, he would become the world's wealthiest man, leading the Boltoga Star conglomerate, which would surpass Roside. If she could support Nalmor early on and make him her person, she wouldn't have to be at the mercy of the Roside ducal house due to financial power in the future. Meanwhile, Golden Honey arrived at the cave entrance again. The woman caringly asked Aaron, "Did you have fun today?" Aaron felt like he had forgotten something, which made him a little sad. He remembered a warm and soft feeling. He didn't want to forget that memory, but he just couldn't recall it, which was upsetting. The woman stroked Aaron's head and told him it was a very wonderful experience. "If you're very sad, let's go for a walk to clear our minds." The two of them went outside the cave together. Aaron suddenly noticed something. Something was glowing on the grass, not far away. Aaron was instantly drawn to it. He ran over and picked it up. It was the first time Aaron had seen such a beautiful stone, and it seemed to be emanating magical power. The woman followed him. Aaron asked if he could have it. The woman readily agreed. Everything in this area belonged to Aaron. During this time, the woman had sensed many emotions in Aaron that he hadn't had before. His experiences as Golden Honey must have had a great impact on the formation of his self. As his mother, she was happy for him. The next morning, the little princess yawned and pushed open the window. The sight before her instantly woke her up. She had woken up to find all the flowers in full bloom. This was incredible. Flowers shouldn't be able to grow in this land. Teresa didn't know what was happening either. She thought it was the princess's unconscious magic leakage, just like in the underground cold storage last time. But the thing in the little princess's hand caught her attention. She asked the little princess what it was. The princess told her that Golden Honey had picked it up on the road last night and gave it to her. The little princess loved this gift. It was the first time she had seen such a beautiful, sparkling red gemstone. Teresa looked at the blooming flowers and the red gemstone and thought of a legend. It is said that when a member of the royal family proposes to someone, they use a treasure called the proposal treasure. Legend has it that if you swear an oath of love to the proposal treasure, flowers will burst into full bloom. But that treasure was lost 200 years ago. There are many speculations in the world. Some even say it was stolen by a world-shaking evil dragon. Teresa stared at the red gemstone in the little princess's hand and the garden full of blooming flowers. It couldn't be, could it? The treasure that disappeared 200 years ago. How could Golden Honey have just picked it up on the road? It must be the little princess's magic leaking. Yes, that must be it. A few days later, to participate in the competition, the little princess, escorted by Weyetin, arrived in the territory of the Merodel Magic Federation. Golden Honey had even secretly followed them, hiding on the roof of the carriage. To her surprise, she actually ran into Reina here. Weyetin politely greeted them. What was even more surprising was that Reina, unlike her usual spoiled and arrogant self, actually became shy. Could it be that she fell in love with Weyetin at first sight? She has surprisingly good taste, but when she saw Weyetin holding the little princess's hand, she was as if struck by lightning. To avoid conflict, the little princess quickly changed the subject, asking who the person next to Reina was. Only then did Reina remember to introduce her. This is Yuri, a commoner child sponsored by the Roside Ducal House. The little princess searched her memory. It was Yuri, the one known as a prodigy in the original novel. At the age of 9, she took on the responsibility of caring for her bedridden mother and younger siblings. To get the sponsorship, she went through fierce competition. Although she didn't have a large role in the original novel, her experience of being sponsored was very similar to her own in her past life, so the little princess remembered her. The little princess politely went forward to greet her. "Is Yuri here to participate in the competition too? Your story was in the newspaper. I think people like you, Yuri, are really strong and cool." In her first 9 years of life, no one had ever praised Yuri. She stood frozen on the spot. The little princess continued, "If there's anything I can help you with, please don't hesitate to find me. I will always support you, Yuri." For the first time, Yuri's heart was stirred. Soon, the day of the competition arrived, but Reina and Yuri didn't see the princess. The princess's name wasn't even on the list of examinees. Reina said she didn't care, but she was actually very concerned. When asked by others, she said petulantly, the princess must have realized her own level and got scared enough to give up on the competition. Soon, the competition began. Everyone became immersed in solving the problems. But what they didn't expect was that the little princess was also seriously solving problems at this time. Meanwhile, back in the arena palace, Teresa had summoned the Empire's gem appraiser. After appraisal, the red gemstone picked up by Golden Honey turned out to be genuine. The appraiser wanted to buy it on the spot, but was refused by Teresa. The owner of this gem is the little princess. For now, it is only for rent, not for sale. As long as people know there's such a treasure in the auction house, it can create infinite added value. A rental fee of $100 million a year would be considered low. Teresa could also give the appraiser a letter of guarantee, proving that the head attendant of the empire entrusted the treasure to him. Under Teresa's persuasion, the appraiser agreed to the deal. Teresa gave a knowing smile. The princess would surely be happy when she found out. The princess sat at her desk in the examination hall, unable to hide her excitement. A school desk, a school chair. In her past life, she had always been in a hospital room and never properly attended school. This experience was so magical. The princess answered the questions seriously. The difficulty was much lower than she had imagined. The little princess quickly finished the competition. If the scores were the same, the person who handed in their paper first would win. So the little princess didn't hesitate and quickly handed in her answer sheet. The examiner sighed and let the little princess leave. The little princess didn't understand the meaning behind the examiner's expression and could only leave the examination hall first. A month passed quickly, and it was the day the competition results were announced. In order to dampen the princess's spirits and to see Weyetin, Reina deliberately came to the arena palace with Yuri. At this moment, Weyetin couldn't wait to check the princess's results. The little princess had to ask him to wait. Both parties exchanged courtesies very politely. Reina was instantly captivated by Weyetin. Pink bubbles seemed to float all around. Yuri and the princess exchanged courtesies. Reina immediately came closer to show off to the little princess. Yuri got first place in the competition. Unexpectedly, the little princess wasn't discouraged at all. She was even happier than if she had won the prize herself. She excitedly held Yuri's hand. "You got first place. I knew you were amazing, Yuri." Yuri's face turned red as she timidly said thank you. This wasn't the reaction Reina wanted. She questioned the princess. "Yuri, who is sponsored by the Roside family, got first place. Why are you so happy?" The princess looked at Yuri and said seriously, "I'm so happy because I genuinely think the effort Yuri put in to achieve this moment is amazing." At this moment, Reina was very curious about the princess's score. The two decided to look together. The princess took the envelope from Weyetin's hand and opened it carefully. Everyone held their breath. The result showed that she was in second place. Weyetin was very happy. He thought the princess was truly amazing. Reina was also shocked by this result. Only the little princess, holding the result in her hand, muttered that it was impossible. She wanted to file an objection. Weyetin patiently asked her for the reason. The little princess said seriously, "I got a perfect score on the exam, and I was the first to hand it in." Weyetin realized something was strange. In Morodel, inside the first mage tower of the Magic Federation, Weyetin brought the little princess and formally filed an objection with the organizing committee. The little princess even demonstrated her problem-solving process on the spot. The organizing committee looked at the blackboard. This is very difficult to handle. Before the competition results were announced, the organizing committee had held an internal meeting. "We can't let the princess of the swordsmanship empire take first place. I heard that a disciple of one of our internal mages also participated this time. If people find out that a disciple of the Magic Federation lost to the princess of Erodian, that absolutely cannot happen." A member of the committee spoke up. "The symbols the princess used are not the official symbols used in the current mathematical system. Although they are perfectly logical and explainable, they are not the correct formulas. That's why the princess was given second place." The princess stood dazed on the stage. It was her mistake. The symbols she was familiar with were not applicable in this world. She could only accept this result. Just as the little princess was about to accept it, the door to the conference room opened, and a brilliant figure walked in. It was Karen. She walked straight to the head of the table with a stack of documents and sternly told the committee members, "The princess is the first place winner." A month ago, Karen had already noticed something was off. She had seen the princess's answer sheet and discovered the issue with the formulas. The professors of the Mage Tower would definitely latch onto these formulas as a reason to refuse to let the princess go, pushing her down from the top spot. They are unwilling to give first place to a princess, especially since an internal disciple was also participating in this exam. The reduced difficulty of the questions was probably because of this as well. For the prestige of the mages, they must give first place to one of their own. Karen pointed to the document she brought. Haven't the professors read the latest published academic journal? One of the people who approved my paper was you, wasn't it, Professor? I have formally published the symbols used by the princess in the academic journal under the princess's name. Please take a closer look. The paper was not rejected. It was properly published in the journal. This time, the committee members had nothing to say. 3 days later, the news that the Princess of Erodian had won first place in the competition quickly spread through every street and alley. Moreover, she was the youngest winner ever. There had never been anything like it in 500 years of history. The little princess also gave her first interview. As soon as she appeared, one could fully feel the bearing and fortitude of the royal family. She seemed to radiate light just by standing there. She wasn't flustered at all when facing the crowd's doubts and questions. Her calm and steady attitude made it impossible to see her as a 6-year-old child. The little princess just wanted to prove to others that even if it wasn't swordsmanship, she could do well in other areas. No one in this world is a defective product. Everyone is a person who shines brightly. In addition, the first place winner of each competition is enrolled in the Mage Tower. The little princess also took the opportunity to announce that she would not be enrolling in the Mage Tower. Rather than becoming a great mage, she just wanted to happily learn and familiarize herself with magic. And this time, the little princess will be donating the prize money. She wants to help those who have dreams and passion but are poor. The crowd below stared wide-eyed, unable to come to their senses for a long while. In the next second, applause surged like a tide. As citizens of Erodian, they were proud to have such a princess. On this day, the little princess was completely exhausted. The voices of the crowd were still echoing in her ears. The maid also happily praised the princess. The little princess suddenly remembered something. After she became number 1, Reina must be very angry. After all, she was so arrogant before. What if she makes things difficult for Yuri and takes her anger out on her? The little princess was a little annoyed. She instructed the maid that if she heard any news about Yuri, she must tell her immediately. The maid agreed. Today was the princess's big day. The maid wanted to prepare a special dinner for the princess. Just as she was about to go out to shop, she heard a commotion at the gate of Arena Palace. It was Yuri. She was requesting to see the princess, but was stopped by the guards. The maid stepped forward, telling the guards this child was the princess's guest. The princess had instructed her to personally receive her. But because of the princess's speech today, many imposters had already come. Some were after the donation money. The guards blocked the maid outside the gate as well. Even when the maid took out her identification token, it was knocked away by a guard. He shouted, "Do you know how many forged tokens I've seen today?" In the end, it was the arrival of the captain of the guards that ended this farce. The captain of the guards severely reprimanded the guard. He rechecked the maid's token and confirmed it was real. He had the guard apologize to the maid. Then he brought Yuri inside. Yuri started crying upon seeing the princess. The little princess was also frantic. She said while crying that the Roside family had stopped sponsoring her and she had been framed for theft. Yuri collapsed on the ground, holding her head and crying bitterly. She herself was fine for now, but her mother was on the verge of death. A child cast out by the Roside family receiving aid in Verodian could very likely trigger a political issue. The little princess comforted Yuri, telling her she would figure something out. The little princess found Teresa and told her about Yuri's situation. Teresa told her that doing so would bring no practical benefit to the princess. But the princess still wanted to help her. She couldn't pretend she hadn't seen it. She could feel the heavy burden Yuri was carrying alone. The little princess clutched her skirt and earnestly told Teresa that she believed Yuri would become someone she needed. Seeing the little princess's determined look, Teresa proposed that she could use the head chamberlain's authority to hire Yuri as the princess's lady-in-waiting. However, this matter would definitely get entangled with the ducal family. It would also require the royal family's permission. The little princess decided to go and speak to her father and mother herself. That evening, the little princess had dinner with the emperor and empress. This was a dream from her past life. To think it was realized here. Is this happiness? The little princess spoke in an opportune moment, telling the two about her desire to have Yuri as her lady-in-waiting. After hearing this, the emperor gave a cold laugh and said faintly, "How ridiculous." The little princess was instantly stunned. The empress reminded the emperor, "The child will misunderstand you if you act like that." She explained to the princess, "What the emperor means is, of course we won't be swayed by the Rosei ducal family's opinion." The emperor held the little princess in his arms, telling her to do whatever she wanted. This was not something she should worry about. He gave the princess a charming smile, telling her he was more powerful than all of them. The little princess returned to Arena Palace, still with a worried expression. If Yuri were to become her lady-in-waiting, her family would have to come along as well. The settlement fee for the family alone would be 10 million. The prize money from the competition was only 10 million. If this money was used up, there would be no money to sponsor Now More. Teresa took the opportunity to tell her about the ruby lease. It could generate 100 million a year. Hearing this, the little princess's spirits instantly lifted, and the difficult problem was solved. She threw herself into Teresa's arms, absolutely overjoyed. Yuri and her mother soon arrived safely. The little princess decided to go see them herself, but through the window, she saw a person. Fiery red hair tied into a ponytail, a tall figure, and an aura that silver armor couldn't conceal. He was the captain of the Outer City Guard, Killian, and also the little princess's favorite character from the original story. He was greeting Weyden. The little princess got down from the carriage and excitedly asked Killian, "Can you give me an autograph?" Killian was startled by the princess's reaction. In the end, the little princess and Killian set off on horseback together. They arrived soon. The little princess went forward to greet Yuri and also wanted to say hello to Yuri's mother. Yuri was stunned. Before she could react, the little princess ran to the side of the carriage, enthusiastically greeting Yuri's mother. Yuri's mother shakily rose from the bed. The little princess froze at the doorway. Yuri's mother's current appearance was just too similar to her own in her past life. The little princess stood at the doorway, dejected and not daring to enter. Yuri walked up and took the little princess's hand, sincerely thanking the princess for helping her family, allowing her to continue her studies and enjoy the palace's medical benefits. Yuri's mother took the initiative to come forward, expressing her gratitude to the princess. The little princess looked at her and remembered her past self. In her past life, she felt she was very unfortunate. Sometimes she acted like a bad child, rejecting everyone's kindness. Some people were sincere, hoping she would get well and healthy, cheering for her and loving her. The little princess felt that helping them was like helping her past self. The little princess also wanted to help others with all her heart. Soon, Yuri began her work as a lady-in-waiting. This day, Yuri specially made a dessert for the little princess. It was dalgona candy, something she had never eaten in her past life. To think she would eat it here, this feeling was truly wonderful. So this is happiness. She happily hugged Yuri, discovering an unexpected talent of Yuri's. 6 months passed just like that. Although the little princess couldn't find Now More, Yuri's addition made her life much more colorful. In the blink of an eye, the little princess turned 7. This day, she came to Karen's room. It wasn't time for class yet. Karen asked if the little princess needed anything. The little princess had something she wanted to show Karen, so she came early. The little princess had finally completed the moving gate. Soon, it was the day for the royal family's newly researched moving gate. A large crowd had gathered at the site, along with reporters. The little princess stood on the stage with a worried expression, because she had forgotten to consider the matter of the first test subject. The commoners were unwilling to be guinea pigs. When the little princess told the emperor this news, the emperor said without hesitation that he could do it. The ruler of a nation cannot take such a risk. Weyton refused him. Besides, people with royal blood could already pass through the moving gate. Then the empress stepped forward. She did not have the blood of the Verodian family. She was an ordinary person, making her the most suitable for the demonstration. The emperor looked at her with a worried expression. The empress just told him to rest assured. Didn't our daughter make this? I trust her. The empress knew better than anyone how perfect something made by a smart, genius princess with teachers like Karen and Tasserin would be. More importantly, as a mother, she trusted her child. The empress walked towards the moving gate designed by the princess, smiling and telling them not to worry. In a flash, she disappeared. The little princess's reason knew it was very safe, but her heart was not certain. The little princess's clenched fists trembled nonstop. What if the formula was wrong? What if there was a mistake? What if the side effects of the moving gate caused a problem for her mother? What if she didn't come out completely unharmed? The more the little princess thought, the more scared she became. Her whole being was enveloped in fear. Just then, a large, warm hand took hers. The emperor comforted her. Don't be afraid. Believe in yourself. The moving gate operated with a huge sound. But the empress still hadn't come out. The crowd below began to grow restless. The little princess also looked worriedly at the moving gate. Suddenly, a snowball came flying towards the emperor. It was Her Majesty the Empress. She came out safely. The family of 3 happily gathered in a circle. Having witnessed the successful case with their own eyes, the crowd below also wanted to give it a try, especially the laborers working in the Elway Mountains. They cherished and protected the Elway Mountains, but the dangerous, steep mountains and the blizzards that froze living creatures. Because of this special environment, most of the laborers suffered from after effects. But even so, they had a strong sense of pride in this work, so they were willing to endure these hardships. If they could use the moving gate, their lives would also change dramatically after today. The little princess was very moved after hearing this. That's right. This was her original intention for creating the moving gate. As long as it can help others, that's enough. Inside the palace, a guard was chasing Golden Honey. Golden Honey unhesitatingly pounced on the little princess. The guard came chasing, out of breath, and told the princess, "This fellow stole gold coins from the royal treasury." This really scared the little princess. She immediately carried Golden Honey back to her room and put him down, telling him that stealing is absolutely not allowed. It is wrong. But Golden Honey thought the princess needed money. She hoped she could make the princess happy. The little princess was really happy that Golden Honey was thinking of her, but it couldn't be done this way. It's not right to make me happy in the wrong way. If you do this, you will in turn make me, your guardian, lose face. Golden Honey looked at the little princess with pleading eyes, attempting to get away with it by acting cute. The little princess did not soften. Wrong is wrong. She made Golden Honey face the wall and reflect. At night, the entire palace fell into silence. Golden Honey was alone in the hallway. He only knew that the princess was angry today, and he was very sad. Just then, the emperor, having just finished his training, passed by and saw Golden Honey. Golden Honey immediately entered a combat stance. The emperor stared at him. "I don't intend to harm you. No need to be so vigilant. But I've been meaning to ask you, are you a dragon that protects the royal family? Are you a descendant of the Black Dragon?" Golden Honey stood there hesitantly, then ran away without saying anything. After running for a long time, he finally stopped. After that, the little princess's life was peaceful and stable. She wanted to learn more and help more people. This day, while she was studying with Yuri, they ran out of snacks. The little princess decided to go get some more herself. As soon as she reached the connecting corridor, she heard maids discussing. "I heard the Alpia Kingdom has requested support from the Magic Tower because an earthquake occurred near Linta. Queen Lacra predicted the earthquake and had people evacuate. Despite this, a strange phenomenon beyond prediction still occurred, causing huge losses. Although volunteers from all over the continent participated, there weren't enough people. In the end, Queen Lacra requested support from the Magic Tower. But the problem is, the Magic Tower has no intention of assisting." The little princess became thoughtful after hearing this. Then she made up her mind and ran to find the emperor. The emperor, with his arms crossed, looked seriously at the little princess. "You say you want to go to the earthquake disaster area to do volunteer service. Are you serious right now?" The little princess explained, "I heard that because the disaster is severe, they need mages." But the emperor interrupted her. "There seems to be some misunderstanding. You are first and foremost the princess of Erodian and then a mage." The little princess believed that in this kind of situation, one should step forward regardless of status. The emperor still disagreed, frowning slightly. He planned to send relief funds in the princess's name. The little princess wanted to say more, but the emperor spoke up. "You are only 7 years old. Do something appropriate for your age." The little princess was very dejected. The empress comforted her. "You are still young, and it's too dangerous there. Mom and Dad can't bear to send you. As parents, even when you're grown up, we probably couldn't agree." The princess looked at the tears welling up in the empress's eyes and said no more. The emperor closed his eyes and dismissed her. At night, the little princess was already in dreamland. Weatin, having learned about the day's events, came to visit the princess. He watched her sleeping restlessly, always having nightmares. The The sleeping princess suddenly started to cry. Wei was taken aback, not knowing whether he should comfort her. The little princess was immersed in a nightmare, sobbing between cries. I don't want to be hated. Don't hate me. Wei slowly clenched his hand, suspended in midair. He made up his mind and left the princess's room, finding the emperor still processing documents. Before he could speak, the emperor knew what he was going to say. Wei looked at the emperor with a serious expression, telling the emperor that he supported the princess's idea. The emperor didn't want to say more and told him to leave. Wei tone softened. Her Highness, the princess has always wanted to help others, hasn't she? So this time, she must want to help as well. The emperor slammed the documents heavily on the table. Wei words sounded unconvincing. Just opening the portal for everyone to use is already enough. Seeing that he couldn't persuade the emperor, Wei stopped talking, sighed, and turned around. This caught the emperor's attention. He sat directly on a nearby sofa, sighing and saying, "Well, actually, I have the same thought as your majesty. Her Highness the princess going to a place like that to do volunteer work? How is that possible? But is it really appropriate to force Her Highness the princess to accept the judgment of adults? Her Highness's life is moving at a fast pace, and her thoughts are profound. No one can fully understand her. Your Majesty, can you really be sure that this decision is the best choice for Her Highness the princess?" His Majesty the Emperor just looked at the documents and remained silent. Recently, there have been some rumors about the princess in the outside world. Those reporters who twist the facts reported that the princess's moving gait was untested and that she wanted to experiment on the people of the empire. Some also say this is just royal packaging, although the princess doesn't show it on the surface. She's actually in great pain. The emperor frowned. He could still handle this matter of public opinion. Wei interrupted him. What the princess needs is not to block those reports, but to know that those are just the voices of a small minority. This disaster relief will be her chance to confirm this. This way, your Majesty will also have one less thing to worry about. You won't need to go through materials to find some good, harmless tea for children that helps with sleep. The emperor was silent for a moment, but still disagreed. He didn't want to see the empress's worried face. Wei stood up and told the emperor, "I will accompany the princess. I will stay by the princess's side without moving an inch. No danger will be able to approach the princess." Just then, a sound from the doorway caught the attention of the two. It was the empress. In the end, they reached a consensus. They agreed to let Wei and the princess go together. Soon, Wei brought the little princess to the disaster site. I heard no one was seriously injured. It looks like a normal construction site. This is all thanks to the queen of the Alpia kingdom, Lacra. Long before the earthquake occurred, she began to analyze seismic waves. Based on the results of the analysis, she evacuated the residents to shelters in advance. Resources like food were all prepared beforehand. She even personally directed the post-disaster recovery work. Thanks to her, the losses were reduced to this extent. If an earthquake of the same intensity had occurred in another region, the losses would surely have been more severe. The princess was all fired up after hearing this. The two decided to immediately find the person in charge to help with the reconstruction of the disaster area. The little princess stepped forward and asked what she could do. The woman told the princess, "Could you please help us fetch some water? It's a bit hot working by the fire." The heat from the kitchen made the princess's face flush as well. Just fetching water wasn't a solution. The princess thought for a moment and took out a magic stone. If you just infuse it with magic, it will blow a cool breeze. The woman immediately told everyone the good news. The princess brought a magic stone that can blow a cool breeze. Everyone felt the cool breeze brought by the princess and smiled happily. After witnessing the princess's ability, someone came looking for her. It was Hector, the foreman of Section 3. There was a place where he hoped the princess could help. The little princess was overjoyed to hear this. She so desperately wanted to be needed. Wherever she was needed, she would go. The little princess felt she was full of energy. The little princess left the magic stone in the kitchen, allowing it to operate on its own. Then, under Foreman Hector's guidance, she moved to another location. Here, the princess received quite a shock. This was the most severely damaged area, but because it relied entirely on manual labor, the recovery progress was the slowest. The little princess realized that cranes did not exist in this world. The civilization gap was too severe, but it should be achievable with magic. I'll do something to the pulley to make it turn more easily. She decided to try it on an empty pulley first. She had already figured out the principle. I just need to add a motor to make the pulley turn forcefully. Soon, the princess was done. She called Hector over to test it. Hector pulled the rope lightly. The high-speed pulley whirred into action. With a huge impact, the heavy object was lifted. Hector fell and sat right on his bottom. The little princess hurried forward to check on him, apologizing to him. Because it was my first time making this, I couldn't adjust the magic power well. But Hector told the little princess it was okay. Even though he fell on his bottom while holding the rope with one hand, that large rock remained suspended until the very end. This was simply amazing. He requested that the princess cast a spell on the remaining pulleys as well. Seeing that he was fine and that she had once again helped someone, she happily agreed. Every time someone tried to pull a pulley and thanked the little princess, the fact that she had been able to help sent a thrill through her heart. But more thrilling than that was the moment during physical labor. Although she was panting heavily, her chest didn't hurt at all. Even after being in the sun all day, she didn't faint. This was something she had never experienced in her past life. After a day of physical labor, the princess quickly fell into a deep sleep at night. She once again dreamed of her past life, of herself lying on a hospital bed. She clutched the blanket tightly, unable to stop trembling. A warm hand gently patted her. The princess's breathing gradually stabilized. The continuous patting on her back seemed to have a magical power that dispelled the lingering fear. In her sleep, the little princess smelled a familiar scent, and that soft feeling. It was the scent of golden honey. She threw herself into his embrace. When the little princess opened her eyes, she saw golden honey in her arms and smiled happily. The little princess had become brave now. She just felt that the golden honey from just now was a size bigger than usual. Golden honey told her arrogantly, "That's because my presence is inherently powerful." She hugged golden honey tightly, hoping golden honey would live longer than her. She hoped that during this time, he would definitely stay by her side. Although this was a selfish and willful request, she wanted golden honey to be with her so much. Golden honey lay on the little princess, nodding gently. The little princess hugged golden honey and fell asleep again. Aaron returned to the cave. The woman was already waiting for him. Because Aaron came back too late, she was very worried. Honey badgers are naturally fearless and often get into danger. But Aaron himself quite likes it. The power of emotion is stronger than the power of memory. Everything Aaron is experiencing now will be stored in the form of emotions. This is the very source that will allow him to grow into an upright dragon. The woman stretched her hand towards Aaron's head to see what happened to Aaron today. Aaron closed his eyes nervously. He had secretly kept his memories. If they were discovered, they would surely be erased. Although he couldn't overcome his mother's magic power yet, he was still capable of hiding them quietly. Aaron returned to his room and collapsed on the floor. Although not all of it, memories were slowly surfacing bit by bit. He had to protect his identity as a dragon, because the dragon power he possessed could surely be of great help to Isabel. Late at night, the woman walked into her room. She came to find her older sister, Lavena. She was the most intelligent of the dragon race. The woman told Lavena that Aaron had retained his honey badger memories and had even hidden this fact from her. She could only pretend not to know. Lavena was shocked to hear this. If this continued, Aaron's identity as a dragon might be shaken, just like the woman's was back then. But the woman had other plans. Aaron considered Isabel extremely important, which was why he hid the fact that he still remembered. Lavena, for some reason, thought of a past nightmare. With a headache, she asked the woman what she planned to do. She decided to secretly erase Aaron's memories. She herself had gone through a similar period. It might be difficult to make the right judgment now. She begged Lavena, her older sister, to help her. Dragons are different from humans. They don't cling to blood ties. After reaching adulthood, a dragon becomes a completely independent individual, only regarding others as fellow kin. Erasing Aaron's memories immediately was the most correct course of action. But Lavena spoke up at this moment. A dragon she knew had experienced a 200-year adolescence. He once believed he was human. But even so, he never lost his self-awareness as a dragon. In a way, he lived a more interesting life than other dragons. If Aaron is as she said, it means his sense of purpose is very clear. Would such a person really lose himself? The woman was puzzled. So we should just let it be? Of course not. Lavena decided to go and meet Golden Honey and Isabel in person before making a decision. Inside the Alpia Kingdom's royal palace, Queen Lacra met the legendary little princess. The little princess was very excited. She greatly admired Queen Lacra. Queen Lacra just wanted to be businesslike, telling the princess they should have met first. If anything had happened, it would have escalated into a political issue, and she demanded that the princess move into the royal palace. Otherwise, the volunteer activities would be terminated immediately. The little princess readily agreed. Queen Lacra had one more thing. She asked the little princess, "Do you remember the last royal meeting?" It ended particularly early that day. His Majesty the Emperor said he was very tired, so it ended early. Did something happen? The princess said helplessly, "It was because that was my birthday, so he said that. Everyone even threw a small party to surprise me." Lacra was speechless. She hadn't expected that reason. She then asked the princess why she was volunteering. The little princess just wanted to do what she could because she had far less time than others. That was the only reason. After hearing this, Lacra didn't say much. She just extended her hand to the princess to express her gratitude. The little princess grasped it tightly, saying she would work even harder. Back in her room that night, the little princess wrote about the day's events in her diary. The day of physical labor made the little princess very happy. She felt she had finally become a useful person. The little princess climbed into bed to rest, but strangely, golden honey hadn't returned yet. The little princess lay by the edge of the bed, a little worried. Could something have happened? By the next morning, when Waitin came to deliver breakfast, golden honey still hadn't appeared. The little princess hadn't slept well because of this. Waitin comforted her, telling her not to worry. He had never seen a honey badger as brave as golden honey. But if the little princess was really worried, Waitin promised her he would go look for him. After saying that, Waitin went out into the streets to search. The streets were bustling. Everyone was discussing the situation. Waitin drew his sword and pointed it at the other person. The other person was Lavena, and in her hand, she was holding golden honey, whom Waitin was looking for. The two seemed to have a grudge. Waitin didn't want to deal with her, just telling her to release golden honey immediately. Lavena paid his words no mind. She toyed with golden honey as she spoke. "It's been 10 years. Has your strength improved much? Or have you forgotten how you almost died for daring to provoke me back then?" As she spoke, her sword was at Waitin's neck. By the time Isabel ran over, the first thing she saw was Sir Waitin collapsed on the ground. She hurried forward to check on Waitin's condition. Suddenly, a voice came from behind her. "Are you the owner of this animal?" The little princess turned around and saw Lavena holding the unconscious golden honey. Waitin shakily got to his feet and stood in front of the princess. But the princess stopped him. She stepped forward and told her that golden honey was her friend, so she would take responsibility. Lavena said scornfully, "Do you know who I am? You don't think I'll let you go just because you're a princess, do you?" Of course, the princess knew. Although she only appeared in the latter half of the original work, she was a very important, young supporting character who made a new pact with the male lead, Aaron, but then suddenly left. She was Waitin's only teacher, the master of Shangtian Island, who managed the Ly Mountains in the northern part of the continent. Lavena looked at the princess. "Then you should know my rule. Debts must be repaid tenfold. What does the princess intend to trade for this honey badger?" The princess thought for a moment, then patted her chest and said, "I am willing to offer you the last year of my life." Lavena was perplexed, not understanding what the princess was saying. The princess had no choice but to roll up her sleeve and speak with difficulty. "You might know this. It's the mark of Nalvedal. If you go to the temple, you can extract the seed that hasn't fallen yet and gain the power to create miracles. The mark of Nalvedal. Another reason it's called a curse is that all children with the mark become targets of human trafficking. They're used as scapegoats to bring miracles to the wealthy and powerful." Lavena looked at the princess, who appeared fearless but was trembling all over. But she didn't want to soften. "Do you think you can get away with this? Do you think 1 year of your life is more precious than the life of this honey badger?" "I don't think so. The lives of all animals are precious. Perhaps because your status is high. If we consider that golden honey is just an animal, 5 years is a good deal. I can consider it." For golden honey's sake, the little princess reluctantly agreed. But she couldn't do it right away. Lavena thought she was trying to pull a trick. The little princess explained that wasn't the case. She had already made a promise to Hector and was currently in service, so she couldn't. To reassure Lavena, the little princess gave her a token. It was a flower crown she had made with golden honey. Lavena didn't understand why a flower crown was so valuable, but she was in a decent mood. The little princess confirmed with Lacra. The work here would take about another 5 days. Lavena agreed. She casually dropped golden honey and left coolly. The little princess held golden honey, checking his condition. She didn't regret her decision, but Waitin, at her side, was filled with self-blame. He believed it was all his fault. If only he were stronger. He had said he would risk his life, yet he still couldn't prevent it. Meanwhile, on her way back, Lavena was stopped by someone. To make a long story short, if you take 5 years from the little princess, you must hand over your head. Lavena spoke disdainfully. Is this your way of making an enemy of me? Are that child's 5 years so important? The you I know would never be like this. The man in black fell silent. Then he took off his hat and said, it's very important. No matter who you are, that child is very important to me. Lavena had known His Majesty the Emperor for decades, but this was the first time she had seen him like this. It was faint, but it was clearly fear. His Majesty the Emperor was afraid. This is truly a rare sight. Lavena assured him that she would not take the princess's lifespan. I'm just curious. If I hadn't just taken back my words, did Your Majesty the Emperor really intend to fight me to the death? The mere fact that the Emperor could feel fear was interesting enough. What was even more interesting was that it was for the little princess, fumbling to pull on a thick robe and walking around. But as a father, deep fear and love are only natural. Although Lavena promised the Emperor she wouldn't take the little princess's life, she needed the Emperor's help with something. Inside the palace, a reporter came to interview the princess. The princess greeted him and happily talked about what she had been doing recently. Just as the reporter was about to ask a malicious question, an emergency alarm sounded in the palace. The little princess immediately found Waitin and asked what was happening. Because Lavena's and His Majesty the Emperor's magic clashed, the immense magical power affected the surrounding rifts. The Cyclopes have also become active. Now, one has appeared in each of the 4 directions, east, south, west, and north, and they are attacking the city gates. The Royal Knights are handling the west gate. The outer city guard is defending the south gate. The walls of the north gate are strong and can still hold. The east gate is the safest for now. His Majesty the Emperor is guarding it. The little princess was so anxious she shot to her feet. Even though her father is the strongest person in this world, capable of easily facing a level 1 monster alone, she was still scared. Scared that her father would get hurt. Scared that she would never see them again. Waitin comforted her. His Majesty will be fine. And now, Waitin also had to go support the south gate, which was in the most urgent need. He instructed the princess to trust him and His Majesty the Emperor and to wait here. She must not do anything reckless. Meanwhile, Lacra was also facing a difficult situation. Although the North Gate's walls were sturdy, they wouldn't last long against the Cyclops. Most of the troops are at the South Gate now, and the Magic Tower still hadn't responded. For the first time, Lacra felt so powerless. Just then, a servant burst in hurriedly. Princess Isabel left a letter and disappeared. She probably heard about the situation and went to defend the North Gate. Lacra shot to her feet in alarm. If anything happened to the princess, thought the entire kingdom would be in trouble. Lacra immediately ordered all forces to be redirected. They were to head to the North Gate to subjugate the giant as quickly as possible. As expected, the princess arrived at the North Gate. The situation looked even more serious than anticipated. The little princess was psyching herself up. Just then, the reporter and Golden Honey followed her. The little princess was surprised and asked them what they were doing here. To cover the situation in the Alpea Kingdom, Lacra had summoned a reporter. As someone from the Magic Tower, the reporter wasn't allowed to write anything praising the royal family. So the current reports were all unfavorable to the princess. Lacra didn't care what kind of article he wrote. What was certain was that the princess was here fulfilling her royal duty. The reporter, who had succumbed to the Magic Tower's pressure, didn't know what that was. This wasn't the reporter's original intention either. In any case, if he wanted to write a good article to the point of taking risks, then he might as well follow his own ideas. As for Golden Honey, he wanted to always be with the princess, so he came along too. The 3 of them climbed the city wall together, planning to scout the situation first. When the little princess opened the door, she saw Waitin already waiting there. Waitin had already guessed. Once the princess decides on something, she really can't be stopped. The reason the princess could so confidently let Weyden go to the south gate was that she planned to go to the north gate alone after he left. But the situation was critical now. The one-eyed monster was menacing and would occasionally jump very high like this. The little princess quickly thought of a battle plan to stop the Cyclops, but she needed Weyden's cooperation. It might be dangerous, but Weyden trusted the princess completely. He would follow her arrangements entirely. Cyclopes are warm-blooded monsters that like warm places. They are quite sensitive to the cold. The little princess was accustomed to cold nature magic, so she could use this to her advantage and cast freezing magic. Even if it couldn't defeat the giant, it could buy some time. This way, they should be able to hold out until the volunteer forces arrive. Weyden put the princess down. He drew the Cyclops' attention by himself. The little princess immediately focused her mind and thought hard. What was something vast enough that one couldn't escape its form, and cold enough to freeze a giant stiff? I've got it. The little princess's eyes lit up. Beyond the Arctic horizon, a frozen world of floating glaciers. The little princess focused on releasing her magic. An eternally unmelting snowflake landed in the little princess's palm. Meanwhile, Weyden did his utmost to attract the Cyclops' attention. Although he had anticipated it, this giant was no ordinary Cyclops. These giants all had special tattoos on their shoulders. Just as Weyden was about to be overwhelmed, the little princess's magic began to take effect. The surroundings began to freeze rapidly, and red beam meteorites fell continuously. But this kind of large-scale magic, maintaining a spell of this scope, is extremely dangerous. The princess needed to stop quickly. Sure enough, the little princess was completely exhausted, even getting a nosebleed. The next second, she collapsed to the ground. Weyden immediately returned to the princess's side and picked her up. The princess's entire body temperature had plummeted. They needed to raise her body temperature quickly. Just then, the Cyclops followed them. How could this be? It should be impossible to break free from such magic so easily. Golden honey came out from behind the two of them. Weyden needed to take care of the princess now and couldn't fight the Cyclops. He ignored Weyden's attempts to stop him and charged towards the giant, his eyes filled with determination. The reporter at the side was also recording all of this. He realized the princess was in danger. Just as he was about to rush forward to draw its fire, Lavinia arrived. She pushed him aside. "Don't do anything foolish. Taking care of yourself is what's most important," she warned. She also stopped Golden Honey, who was about to charge forward, and stood protectively in front of everyone. She was seen leaping into the air and landing a heavy blow on the nape of the giant's neck. Soon, the Cyclops lost its ability to move and fell stiffly to the ground. After everything had calmed down, the princess gradually woke up. She politely expressed her thanks to Lavinia. Lavinia, in turn, expressed her fascination with the little princess's magic. To think you could expand a magic scale by crushing the ice to increase its contact surface area. It seems the little princess is truly talented. Now, there was a more important matter. Both Lavinia and Weyden felt that this Cyclops was no ordinary creature. The two decided to go down and take a look. They went down below the city wall. They observed the fallen Cyclops. It was larger, and there was the mark on its shoulder. The two of them pondered in silence. Weyden sniffed the air. That familiar scent. It was the one he had been tracking for a long time. It's the same scent as that guy, William, the founding mage of the Magic Federation.